Chapter 800. I need this ice silkworm, Goo King, to exchange for your freedom, Zhou said as he pointed at the ice silkworm on the ground. Goo Lady nodded before tapping the ice silkworm with her finger. The ferocious and domineering ice silkworm obediently crawled toward Zhou and stopped by his feet. However, it had no intention of attacking him. From the looks of it, the Xiao family has really underestimated Goo Lady's strength. If they knew that Goo Lady can easily make a top-notch goo like the ice silkworm obey her orders, I wonder what expression they would have. Zhou took out the essence gold pot that Worm Dugu had prepared and placed it on the ground. The ice silkworm jumped in like a pet being reared by someone. Zhou's heart stirred as he looked at Goo Lady and asked, "Can you secretly control the other ice silkworm Goo and make it look like I've captured it?" Goo Lady nodded again. From the looks of it, she could do it. Then control that ice silkworm Goo later and get it to pretend that I've captured it. Zhou told Goo Lady his plan. After confirming that she could understand, Zhou took the ice silkworm in the essence gold pot and sneaked back to where Li Xian and company were. Oh no, Goo Lady actually failed. Someone snatched the ice silkworm. Xiao Tianfan's expression suddenly changed. How is this possible? Who can snatch the ice silkworm in front of Goo Lady without anyone noticing? Xiao Youqi jumped in fright as he said in disbelief, "I don't know." The gooey setup didn't react at all. Goo Lady didn't discover any traces of him either. Xiao Tianfan's expression was ugly as he continued, "I've already summoned Goo Lady back. Now, we can only do our best to capture this ice silkworm." Just as Xiao Tianfang said that, he saw Zhou, who had left previously, return to Worm Dugu's side. He said a few words to Worm Dugu before walking towards the ice silkworm. Could it be that he snatched the other ice silkworm? Xiao Tianfang's heart skipped a beat. However, Xiao Youqi had already led his men to block Zhou, preventing him from approaching the battlefield. At the same time, he shouted at Worm Dugu, "Old Master Dugu, we are capturing this ice silkworm. It's not appropriate for you to interfere, right?" Worm Dugu said with a smile, "I'm still here." He didn't even move. When did he intervene in your affairs? The Dugu family has always been open and above board. Old Master Dugu, don't tell me that this friend isn't from your Dugu family? Xiao Youqi said as he pointed at Zhou. I really wish that he was a member of our Dugu family. Unfortunately, he isn't. Without waiting for Xiao Youqi to say anything, Worm Dugu continued. However, you can't say that he has nothing to do with our Dugu family. Although he's not a member of our Dugu family, he's my uncle master. Xiao Youqi, Xiao Tianfang, and company were alarmed. Although Worm Dugu wasn't someone with real power in the Dugu family, his seniority was rather high. Furthermore, he was very famous for raising goo. He was a famous master in the South District. It was unbelievable that Worm Dugu actually said that the youth in front of him was his uncle master. However, a figure like Worm Dugu clearly wouldn't joke about such matters. Could it be that this person has already cultivated to the point of regaining his youth? He looks young, but is actually an old monster? Xiao Tianfang thought to himself. Since he's your uncle master, don't you think it's appropriate for him to do this? Xiao Youqi said. Worm Dugu continued, smiling, and said, "It's useless for you to say that to me. Only an uncle master can discipline his disciple. When have you ever seen a disciple discipline an uncle master?" "Sir," Xiao Youqi looked at Zhou and was about to say something when he suddenly saw Zhou extend his hand and grab. A blood-red vortex appeared on his palm and sucked in the ice silkworm that was fighting the blood scorpion. The majestic ice silkworm couldn't withstand the suction force of the blood-colored vortex and was sucked into the essence gold pot by Zhou. How is this possible? It wasn't just the Xiao family. Even Worm Dugu widened his eyes as though he had seen a ghost. Although he had imagined that Zhou might subdue the ice silkworm, he never expected it to be in such a manner. Worm Dugu originally imagined that Zhou would use the chick's restraining effect before using various means and mythical companion beasts to fight the ice silkworm and finally subdue it. However, to his surprise, Zhou extended his hand and sucked the ice silkworm into the essence gold pot. It was as though he wasn't collecting a Goo King, but an ordinary worm. The Xiao family's eyes nearly popped out. They had fought the ice silkworm for so long, so they naturally knew how terrifying it was. Up to now, they had lost hundreds of goo and come in thongs, but they were still helpless against the ice silkworm. Even the mythical blood scorpion goo was about to be killed. However, Zhou had used one hand to capture the ice silkworm. What terrifying strength was this? It was unbelievable, as expected of Worm Dugu's Uncle Master. He's indeed an old monster. Xiao Tianfeng was secretly alarmed as his expression turned extremely ugly. After spending so much effort and paying such a huge price, the ice silkworm had been casually captured by someone else. Xiao Tianfeng didn't need to guess to be certain that the other ice silkworm had definitely been taken away by Worm Dugu's Uncle Master. He wanted to snatch it, but Worm Dugu alone made him lose the courage to do so. Furthermore, the person in front of him was Worm Dugu's Uncle Master, an existence who had subdued the ice silkworm with one hand. Only then did Xiao Tianfeng feel a sinister aura return and enter the Kamine in his hand. I came back too late. Xiao Tianfeng was somewhat helpless. The Kamine in your hand is rather interesting, Zhou said as he looked at the Kamine in Xiao Tianfeng's hand. The Xiao family's expressions changed. An existence that could capture the ice silkworm with one hand probably had no chance of resisting if he were to snatch their Kamine. Even a mythical Kamine probably didn't have the ability to fight such an existence. Old Master Dugu. The Dugu family is the head of the South District. You won't watch your Uncle Master snatch our Kamine, right? Xiao Yoqi felt uneasy as he looked at Worm Dugu and said through gritted teeth, "Who said I'm snatching your things? I just found a little special and asked in passing. Even if I really want it, I won't snatch the things of juniors like you. At most, I'll buy your Kamine. Why snatch it?" Zhou said before Worm Dugu could speak. "This Kamine is our Xiao family's heirloom. It's not for sale," Xiao Yoqi said. "You won't sell it even if I exchange it with the ice silkworm?" Zhou said indifferently. "You want to use the ice silkworm to exchange for the Kamine?" Xiao Tianfeng and Xiao Yoqi were taken aback. "Why? You're not even exchanging for the ice silkworm? What about the two ice silkworms?" Zhou continued. "Do you really want to use two ice silkworms to exchange for the Kamine?" Xiao Tianfeng and Xiao Yoqi looked at each other and saw the pleasant surprise in each other's eyes. From their point of view, although Gu Lady Kamine was indeed very strong, she was only slightly stronger than an ice silkworm. Two ice silkworms were much more practical than Gu Lady Kamine. Furthermore, Gu Lady Kamine would bite back at her master. Xiao Tianfeng would even consider exchanging one ice silkworm, much less two. "Uncle Master, you mustn't." Worm Dugu jumped in fright. Using two ice silkworms to exchange for the Kamine was a disadvantageous deal no matter how he looked at it. However, they had no idea that the two ice silkworms were far inferior to Gu Lady. They weren't on the same level at all. Even if they really exchanged, Zhou would still benefit greatly. Furthermore, he had no intention of really giving the ice silkworms to the Xiao family. Chapter 801. Do you really want to use the ice silkworm to exchange for my Kamine? Xiao Tianfeng hurriedly asked, afraid that Zhou would be convinced by Worm Dugu. "That depends on whether your Kamine can interest me. I find it a little special. It's a little different from the Kamine I've seen before. Tell me what's so special about her." Firstly, Zhou wanted to lure Xiao Tianfeng into the trap. Secondly, he wanted to know more about the Kamine. Xiao Tianfeng was somewhat hesitant. After all, he couldn't be sure if Zhou would use two ice silkworms to exchange for Gu Lady Kamine. If he explained Kamine's origins and Zhou didn't make the exchange, he would suffer a huge loss. "Uncle Master, our Dugu family has plenty of Kamine if you want one. How about this? Come back with me and exchange the ice silkworms with our Dugu family. Two ice silkworms can be exchanged for two Kamine. Whatever species you want, you can choose any Kamine in the Dugu family," Worm Dugu said. "Brother." Xiao Yoqi was a little anxious as he looked at Xiao Tianfeng. Xiao Tianfeng gritted his teeth and said to Zhou, I don't dare say that this Kamine of mine is unprecedented, but it's indeed extraordinary. It can be said to be unique. It's impossible to find a second one in the entire Federation. If you really want it, can we have a private chat? There are no outsiders here. Is there anything you can't say in person? Zhou asked. Xiao Tianfang said, it's not like you have to exchange it for my Kamine. Besides, even if you do, you don't want outsiders to know her secret after this Kamine belongs to you, right? That makes sense. All right then. Zhou nodded slightly. Uncle Master, that Kamine really isn't worth 2 ice silkworms. Exchange with me. Our Dugu family doesn't have any Kamine. Why we have to seek something far away? Worm Dugu had the urge to pull Zhou back. Come on, I've seen all your Kamine. I'm sick of looking at them. What do you mean? I just think this Kamine is a little different, Zhou said. You really have a good eye. This way, please. Xiao Tianfang made an inviting gesture. Wait for me here. I'll go take a look and come back. Zhou instructed Li Xian and Worm Dugu before following Xiao Tianfang to the temporary camp they had set up in a nearby cave. When Xiao Tianfang and Xiao Yoqi saw that Zhou didn't care at all along the way, as though he didn't care if they had set up an ambush, they felt that Zhou was definitely extremely terrifying and didn't take them seriously. How should I address you? When they arrived at the cave, Xiao Tianfang got Xiao Yoqi to personally guard the door while he talked to Zhou alone. My surname is Zhou, Zhou said casually. Elder Zhou, you must be an expert in Common Thong. You must know this very well. You know that some Common Thong Commonace refinement methods are very special. Xiao Tianfang probed. Zhou waved his hand and said disapprovingly, I don't care how this Common came about. I just want to know what's so special about her. I only want something unique. If it's not unique, it's meaningless. Seeing that Zhou didn't mind the method of refining a Kamine, Xiao Tianfang said with a smile, Elder Zhou, you are indeed a senior expert. Your insights are incomparable to ordinary people. This Kamine of mine was refined by a master named Aizen. The abilities this Kamine possesses are different from ordinary Kamine. She doesn't have ordinary abilities like changing one's luck, but she's very good at dealing with goo. She can independently capture mythical goo. Is that all? Zhou revealed a look of disappointment. Xiao Tianfang gritted his teeth and continued. To be honest, the baby that refined this Kamine is the legendary reincarnation of the goo god. It has a natural restraining effect on goo. Our Xiao family is too useless and failed to raise her well. If an expert like you were to raise her, you might be able to unleash her full strength. When the time comes, it will definitely be of great use. The reincarnation of the goo god? That's interesting. I previously heard of a couple who reared goo. Their child was the reincarnation of the goo god. Could it be that? Zhou said. This. Xiao Tianfang didn't admit or deny it. I've heard of that matter as well. I originally wanted to rush over to see if I could refine a Common Thong, but I was a step too late. If the material of this Kamine is that baby, I'll make the exchange, Zhou said. You are really a kindred spirit. Do you really want to exchange? 2 ice silkworms for this Kamine? Xiao Tianfang was still worried and wanted to confirm it. From the looks of it, this Kamine of yours was really refined by that baby. It's no wonder you were so careful. As Zhou spoke, he placed the essence gold pot on the stone platform and pushed it in front of Xiao Tianfang. It's really refined by that baby. I want it. Take the ice silkworm first. Do you mind if I take a look at the ice silkworm inside? It's not that I don't trust you, but this concerns the rise and fall of our Xiao family. Xiao Tianfang asked carefully. At this stage, he was still very careful. Just open it. My essence gold pot is extraordinary. As long as the goo are trapped, even the Dragon King goo won't be able to escape, Zhou said indifferently. When Xiao Tianfang heard that the essence gold pot was so powerful, he picked it up and carefully observed it. He felt that it was indeed a good pot, but he didn't know what was good about it. The Xiao family's goo rearing could only be considered a half-baked profession. They weren't as proficient as Common Thong. How could he recognize a goo pot created by Worm Dugu? Xiao Tianfang didn't dare open it, afraid that the ice silkworms would escape. He wasn't confident that he could escape from the 2 ice silkworms. However, on second thought, Kaminei's life was connected to his. If Zhou Wen wanted Kaminei, it was impossible for him to die. With this in mind, Xiao Tianfeng carefully opened a crack in the goo pot and looked in. Indeed, he saw 2 ice silkworms inside, but they were restrained by the essence gold pot. No matter how they struggled, they couldn't rush out. Xiao Tianfeng was relieved. He completely opened the lid, and the 2 ice silkworms inside only circled in the pot, unable to crawl out. I never expected there to be such a goo pot in this world. My horizons have really been broadened today. Xiao Tianfeng thought for a moment and said, "Since you are so sincere, I won't hide it from you. This Kaminei of mine was refined by that baby back then. It has a strong restraining effect on goo. It's also an extremely powerful existence among Kaminei. It can be considered a fusion of goo and Kaminei. It's a unique existence in the world. You won't regret changing it." As expected, I knew I wouldn't be wrong. In that case, the 2 ice silkworms are yours. Release her intrinsic lock and give her to me, Zhou Wen said. Xiao Tianfeng said in embarrassment, "Elder Zhou, your pot is too high level, but our Xiao family can't compare to you. Without a pot that can store the ice silkworms, there's no way we can bring them back. We originally wanted to use this Kaminei to control them, but now that the Kaminei has been transferred to you, there's really no other way. Can you lend us the goo pot for now? We'll definitely return it after the domestication is successful." Chapter 802. Zhou Wen thought to himself, this Xiao Tianfeng is really greedy. He's already eyeing the goo pot so quickly. This was exactly what Zhou Wen wanted. Zhou Wen said indifferently, "It's just a goo pot. I have plenty of them. It's nothing. Just take it back. There's no need to return it." "Elder Zhou, are you serious?" Xiao Tianfeng was overjoyed. He even had the intention to kneel and kowtow to Zhou Wen. "The premise is that your Kaminei is really the reincarnation of the goo god. If I discover that something's amiss, even your Xiao family probably won't be able to keep it, much less the ice silkworm and the goo pot," Zhou Wen said indifferently. Xiao Tianfeng was alarmed as he restrained the surprise in his heart. He said solemnly, "Don't worry. This Kaminei was definitely refined by the goo god's reincarnation. Furthermore, it was personally refined by me. There's no mistake. If there's any falsehood, I'm willing to suffer the punishment of 10,000 goo drilling my heart." Xiao Tianfeng swore and told the truth. "Then I'm relieved. Release her intrinsic lock," Zhou Wen said. "Release the intrinsic lock directly? Do you want me to transfer the intrinsic lock to you?" Xiao Tianfeng asked in puzzlement. "There's no need. It's just a mythical Kaminei. If I can't even suppress her, I'll have wasted all my years of playing Kaminthong," Zhou Wen said indifferently. "All right." Xiao Tianfeng felt that Zhou Wen was indeed an important figure. He didn't even think much of the mythical Kaminei. It was no wonder he was Worm Dugu's uncle master. Thinking back to how Zhou Wen had casually subdued the ice silkworm Goo King, he didn't hesitate anymore. He handed the Kaminei to Zhou Wen before taking out a pouch. With the pouch in hand, he bit the tip of his tongue and spat a mouthful of blood on it. The moment his blood touched the pouch, it burned like a flame. As the pouch was burned, the Kaminei in Zhou Wen's hand trembled. Xiao Tianfeng's expression turned nasty. His face was pale as cold sweat instantly covered his forehead. He looked like he was in great pain. Zhou Wen had consulted Gu Shanshui and knew that this intrinsic lock connected the Kaminei to his lifeline. If he removed it, it would cause him great damage. The reason why Xiao Tianfeng was willing to remove the intrinsic lock was probably because he had not been able to fully control the Goo Poison Lady. Instead, he had suffered from the backlash of the Goo Poison Lady's power. He had been living a hard life for a long time. Now that he could finally escape Goo Lady, he was even more eager than Zhou Wen. With 2 ice silkworm Goo Kings and that Goo Pot, Xiao Clan's future achievements would definitely be stronger than before, and the pain of the Goo Lady's backlash would also leave him. Kacha! After the pouch was completely burned, something seemed to shatter on Kaminei's skull. Zhou Wen took a look and saw a drop of blood seeping out from the top of her skull. Xiao Tianfeng, on the other hand, spat out a mouthful of blood. It seemed that his injuries were not light. Elder Zhou quickly suppressed Kumine. Don't let her escape, Xiao Tianfang said as he endured the pain. He wasn't afraid that Gu Lady would run. After all, he had already sold her to Zhou. It had nothing to do with him whether she ran or not. He was just afraid that she would find trouble with him. The deal is over, I should go. Zhou grabbed Kumine and injected a wisp of essence energy into her. Kumine was immediately enveloped by essence energy before he placed her in his bag and stood up. Someone send Elder Zhou back. Xiao Tianfang called someone over and said, Elder Zhou, take care. It's not convenient for me, so I won't be sending you off. Recuperate well. You broke the intrinsic lock. Your injuries aren't light either. With that said, Zhou left with Kumine. Xiao Liuqi came over and asked nervously and excitedly, Brother, did we really succeed? Did we really exchange for those 2 ice silkworm goo kings? It's true. It's those 2 ice silkworm goo kings without a doubt. There's also a mark we left on them. There's no mistake. Xiao Tianfang was also very excited. That Elder Zhou didn't know that there was something wrong with Gu Lady. He thought that he had taken advantage of her. Now that we have 2 ice silkworm goo kings in hand, and I've removed the backlash from my body, each of us will have an ice silkworm goo king. In 2 to 3 years, after we tame them, our Xiao family will have a chance to advance further. By the way, take a look at this goo pot. It's an impressive goo pot. Xiao Tianfang opened the goo pot and let Xiao Liuqi look at the ice silkworm. He even demonstrated the goo pot's functions. That Elder Zhou actually gave us such a treasure so casually. What a fool, Xiao Liuqi sighed. Zhou had already walked far away, but truth listeners still allowed him to hear the conversation between the 2 brothers clearly. He couldn't help but sneer inwardly. I wonder who's the fool. Gu Lady could easily make the ice silkworms obey her. This was a truly terrifying existence. The 2 Xiao brothers didn't know that they had a precious treasure on them. They thought that they had taken advantage of them after exchanging for 2 ice silkworm goo kings. As for the so-called precious goo pot, although it was indeed extraordinary, it was impossible for it to restrain the ice silkworm goo kings. The reason they stayed inside obediently was because Gu Lady was controlling them and ordering them to cooperate. Otherwise, they would have long rushed out. The Xiao brothers treated them as treasures, but they didn't know that they were the most lethal talismans. After Gu Lady obtained freedom, she wanted to attack the Xiao brothers, but Zhou held down her intrinsic Kumine, preventing her from taking revenge now. After all, Zhou was trading with the Xiao brothers in the name of the Dugu family. If he killed them now, it wouldn't be good for the Dugu family's reputation. Worm Dugu had already helped him put on an act, so he couldn't implicate the Dugu family. Zhou touched the restless Kumine in his backpack and whispered, There's no rush. You are already free. There are still 2 ice silkworm goo kings by their side. Are you afraid that you can't take revenge? The Kumine slowly quietened down. After the intrinsic lock was removed, Gu Lady had already entered the Kumine. Previously, due to the restrictions of the intrinsic lock, she couldn't even return to her body. She could only listen to Xiao Tianfang's orders and do things for him. Otherwise, it would be very easy for Xiao Tianfang to kill her. Now, it was different. The intrinsic lock had been removed, so Gu Lady was no longer restricted. After meeting up with Li Xian and Worm Dugu, the 3 of them returned to their residence. On the way back, Worm Dugu asked with a smile, Uncle Master, was my acting all right? Not bad. It's just a little exaggerated, Zhou said with a smile. Only exaggerated acting will be acknowledged by others. Didn't Xiao Tianfang believe it? On account of my age and how I'm still working so hard to act with you, shouldn't you consider teaching me a few tricks to adopting a phoenix? Worm Dugu said, The trick is to find a phoenix and be fancied by it. Zhou was telling the truth, but his truth left Worm Dugu depressed. On the way back, Zhou felt that something was amiss with the Kumine. The jade-like bones were slowly growing. Not only were the bones growing larger, but flesh and meridians were also growing on them. What's going on? Don't tell me she's coming back to life? Zhou was alarmed as he hurriedly stored her in the chaos space. Otherwise, it would be too shocking to be seen by others outside. Chapter 803. Crack. The crystal container outside the Kamine shattered, and the corpse oil inside flowed out. The Kamine was already so large that the container couldn't contain it. Her flesh and blood were plump, and her skin grew out. Then, her hair and fingernails. In just a moment, the Kamine, who had shrunk into a ball and was blurry, turned into a living baby. The fair and tender baby looked no different from a normal baby, but if one carefully observed her body, they would realize that her heart wasn't beating. The blood in her body wasn't flowing. She was said to be a dead person, but everything about her body was normal. There was vitality in her body, and even her eyes had opened. She was like a normal baby, but she didn't even have a heart. It was difficult to tell if she was dead or alive. When Joan returned to his residence, the baby had already grown to the size of a 1-year-old child. However, it looked like she had stopped growing. Zhou would originally imagined that she would grow to the size of Gu Lady, but to his surprise, she stopped growing. Could it be because she was in the chaos space and was affected by the chaos space? Zhou brought the girl out and bathed her. He washed away the corpse oil on her body and placed her on the bed. However, the girl didn't continue growing. She remained the same size as she sat on the bed and looked at Zhou expressionlessly. Zhou took out a set of clothes he had bought for demonic neonate from the chaos space. He originally wanted demonic neonate to wear it for fun when she had nothing to do, but now it came in handy. However, she was slightly smaller than demonic neonate, so she was still very big when she wore it. However, this was already the most suitable clothes Zhou could find for her. He could only make do with it and buy in the future. Do you know how to wear clothes? Zhou asked the girl. The girl shook her head and continued looking at Zhou. Could it be that when a person becomes a child, even their intelligence has returned? Zhou had no choice but to help her put it on. Then, he looked at the girl sitting on the bed and asked, "Do you still remember me?" Zhou didn't know what was going on. The knowledge he had learned from Gu Shanshui didn't include this. According to Gu Shanshui, if the Kamine didn't have any restrictions, her spirit body could return to her main body, but she wouldn't revive. She would only have autonomy. Typically, Kamine who had ancient rights were very dangerous. As they died too unjustly, the resentment in them wouldn't dissipate. They would constantly harm others. Zhou didn't want to raise Gu Lady like Xiao Tianfeng, so he didn't plan on turning Gu Lady into his Kamine. Instead, he planned on using another method to take her away. However, to his surprise, Gu Lady came to life before Zhou could use that method. She had even turned into a baby. The method Gu Shanshui had taught him was probably useless. The little girl nodded. It seemed that she still remembered him. From the looks of it, you still have your memories. Zhou heaved a sigh of relief. Now that you are free, what plans do you have? Zhou asked the girl. The girl looked at Zhou without answering as though she didn't know what he meant. What I mean is, where do you want to go in the future? Zhou was afraid that she wouldn't understand, so he changed his wording. The little girl continued to look at him without saying a word. He didn't know if she understood him or not. What's your name? Zhou wanted to call her, but he realized that he definitely didn't know her name. He couldn't call her Gu Lady like Xiao Tianfeng and company, right? She probably wouldn't like that form of address either. The girl finally reacted as she shook her head at Zhou. Don't you have a name? Zhou asked. Seeing the girl nod, Zhou knew that he had guessed correctly. After some thought, he said, Then shall I give you a name? The girl nodded again. This made Zhou know that she could understand him. Her intelligence hadn't regressed, but for some reason, she couldn't speak. Zhou seriously considered for a while and sized up the girl's appearance before carefully asking, What do you think of the name Xiaoli? The girl's face remained expressionless as she subtly turned her face to the side. Isn't it good? How about calling her Little Na? Zhou asked after some thought. The girl was expressionless, as though she hadn't heard Zhou. She raised her arm and pointed at Zhou's chest. Zhou looked down and realized that there were only clothes on his chest. There was nothing else. There were no patterns or words. Could it be? She's referring to this. Zhou reached into his collar and took out a pendant that looked like ivory. This was a pendant carved by Wang Mingyuan. It was said to be carved from the white dragon's tooth in Old Dragon's Well. As for the origins of the dragon's tooth, it was said that eldest senior brother Lu Yun had stolen it from old Dragon's Well, but Wang Mingyuan said that he had picked it up. She can still see through things. From the looks of it, her abilities are still there. Zhou knew that he had guessed correctly when he saw the girl's finger move along with the pendant. You want to use this pendant as a name? I know. This is carved from a dragon's tooth. That's why you want to be called Little Dragon, right? Zhou was enlightened. The girl was expressionless as she stared at him without any reaction. After staring at him for a while without blinking, Zhou felt a little creeped out. Isn't that so? Is that little tooth? Zhou asked guiltily. The girl looked at Zhou with a strange look before slowly nodding. Zhou looked at the girl's eyes and felt that she was about to give up. He felt that it wasn't a good idea, so he thought for a moment and said, Little Tooth doesn't sound nice. It doesn't sound like a girl's name. Why don't we call you Ya-er? Sprout means sprout. I hope you can grow up quickly. The girl nodded slightly. Although she was still a little reluctant, she didn't have the expression of giving up like before. All right, I'll call you Ya-er for now on. Zhou wiped the sweat from his forehead before looking at Ya-er and saying, Ya-er, can you still control the ice silkworm, Goo King? Yeah. Nodded and Zhou felt relieved. If Ya-er couldn't control the ice silkworm Goo King, his plan would fail. Although the outcome might be the same, Zhou didn't like things he couldn't control. Can you still make others unable to see you? Zhou asked again. This time Ya-er shook her head. Clearly, she could no longer exist in a spirit body state. Zhou asked Ya-er a few more questions and roughly understood something related to Ya-er. However, his understanding was very limited. She couldn't speak, so Zhou could only test her. Now, he only knew that Ya-er's abilities, memory, and intelligence hadn't changed. They were the same as before, but for some reason, her body remained in this state and didn't continue growing. Is she considered a living person now? Zhou couldn't determine Ya-er's situation, so he could only ask her, what do you want to do now? Kill. Yeah, I actually said one word. So you can speak? Zhou looked at Ya-er in shock. He had been gesticulating all day, but it turned out that Ya-er could speak. Chapter 804. However, when Zhou asked Ya-er again, she only nodded and shook her head without saying a word. Could it be that she only knows this one word? Although Zhou felt that it was impossible for her to only say one word, there was nothing he could do if Ya-er didn't say it. Ya-er suddenly stood up and walked out. However, after taking 2 steps, her legs went limp and she fell to the ground. From the looks of it, her physical strength was about the same as an ordinary baby. Ya-er frowned slightly as her eyes focused. Her body actually floated up. How strange. Her psyche is still as strong as before. It's at the mythical level, but her body is as weak as a baby. Zhou also found it odd. Just as Zhou was about to say something to Ya-er, he saw her fly out the window and head for the Xiao family. Afraid that something would happen, Zhou put on the invisibility cloak and followed. In the Xiao family, Xiao Tianfeng and Xiao Youqi were preparing a plan to tame the ice silkworm. They couldn't wait to successfully tame it. What a treasure! A powerful goo like the ice silkworm, Goo King, is actually trapped inside without the ability to rush out. It's much easier for us to tame it, Xiao Youqi said as he looked at the ice silkworm inside. Xiao Tianfeng was also observing the 2 ice silkworms. The 2 ice silkworms seemed to be tired from crawling around inside. They were motionless inside and should be resting. Xiao Youqi took out a goo, tied it to a rope, and threw it into the essence gold pot. This was the food that the ice silkworms liked to eat. He had to use this method to lure the ice silkworms, but he didn't let them eat it. Then, he would gradually train them. Xiao Youqi placed the goo in and was about to pull it out when the ice silkworm took action. However, to his surprise, an ice silkworm swallowed the goo at an astonishing speed. It didn't give him any time to pull it out. The ice silkworm is too fast. It will be very troublesome to domesticate it. Xiao Youqi was about to pull out the rope and get another goo. But who knew that the ice silkworm inside would flash out of the pot and appear on the edge of the pot? Xiao Youqi and Xiao Tianfeng turned pale with fright and hurriedly retreated. How could this be? Xiao Tianfeng was shocked and felt that something was very wrong. Before Xiao Liuqi could say anything, the other ice silkworm crawled out as though the essence gold pot had lost its effect. The two of them ran out without hesitation. When they came out of the secret room, they were stunned by the scene in front of them. Inside the huge temple, there were all sorts of goo worms crawling all over the place. The Xiao family was fighting the goo worms with all their might. And what was even more terrifying was that the goo worms they had tamed had actually betrayed their masters and attacked them. Screams and blood were everywhere. How could this be? What exactly happened? Xiao Tian's eyes were red. The entire temple seemed to have turned into hell. There's a problem. There must be a problem. It must be that Zhou fellow. He didn't want to give us the ice silkworm at all. Xiao Liuqi felt despair. The Xiao family already had many goo, but now all of them had betrayed them. Even a mythical blood scorpion goo had rushed out and was crazily slaughtering. There were also a few mythical goo that they had captured in the past that were slaughtering crazily. Any one of them was already very difficult for them to deal with, much less so many goo. Now, it was impossible for them to even rush out of the temple. Zhou, even if I die and become a ghost, I won't let you off, Xiao Tianfeng shouted in grief and indignation. In the sky, a figure slowly descended. Xiao Tianfeng and Xiao Liuqi looked over and realized that it was a 1-year-old girl. However, the little girl's face didn't have the innocence and adorableness a child should have. She was expressionless and cold as she floated in the air, looking down at Xiao Tianfeng and Xiao Liuqi coldly. The surrounding goo slaughtered wantonly, but no goo attacked Xiao Tianfeng and Xiao Liuqi. Goo lady, you're a goo lady. How is this possible? Xiao Tianfeng carefully sized up and suddenly pointed at her as he shouted in horror. After all, he had once been connected to Ye-Er's intrinsic life. He was all too familiar with Ye-Er's aura. Although the intrinsic lock had been removed, he could still sense the extraordinary aura on Ye-Er's body. How could she be goo lady? That's impossible, right? Xiao Liuqi naturally didn't believe that the girl in front of him was goo lady. It was impossible for Kumin-ne to be revived. The girl in front of him was clearly a living person. Six brother, are you muddle-headed? Apart from goo lady, who can control so many goo? Who can make all our goo betray us? Also, her aura is definitely goo lady's. There's no mistake, Xiao Tianfeng said in horror. At that moment, the two ice silkworms crawled out as transparent wings appeared on their backs. They flew to goo lady's side as though they were protecting her. Xiao Tianfeng suddenly seemed to understand something. Xiao Tianfeng suddenly seemed to have understood something. His body trembled as he gritted his teeth and said, I understand now. It turns out that Zhou doesn't have any ability at all. What treasure pot? What's subduing the ice silkworm with one hand? It's all fake. The goo lady can subdue the ice silkworm at all. She's the one controlling the ice silkworm. We actually didn't realize that her power has already reached such a level. Xiao Liuqi was also horrified as his face was filled with despair. It's over. Brother, we're doomed this time. We shouldn't have targeted her back then. Now, she's here for revenge. The entire Xiao family was dead. Goo worms had surrounded them like a tide, surrounding the two of them in the middle. The entire temple was drowned in goo worms, leaving only the place where they were standing without goo worms. You deserve death. With Ye-Er's voice, the goo surged towards them like a tidal wave. The Xiao brothers fought with all their might, but they were quickly drowned by the goo. Countless goo drilled into their bodies and tore at their organs and flesh. Amidst the inhuman cries, the Xiao brothers were gnawed to the point that not even their bones were left. Zhou flew in the air and couldn't help but frown when he saw the tragic state of the Xiao family. He was somewhat worried. It was understandable that Ye-Er wanted revenge, but it was indeed a little too ruthless to kill them all without asking any questions. The Xiao family might not be filled with bad people, nor might they have done bad things. It wasn't that Zhou pitted the Xiao family, but he was afraid that with Ye-Er's personality, she would treat him and his friends the same way she treated the Xiao family if he or the people around him angered her in the future. While Zhou was still thinking, the goo had already begun to disperse. In a moment, none of them were left. Only a flew over with the two ice silkworms. Zhou took out the essence gold pot that Worm Dugu had given him, and the two ice silkworms obediently burrowed in. Chapter 805. Now you're free. You can go anywhere you want and do whatever you want, Zhou said to Yer in front of him. However, only looked at Zhou without saying a word. She clearly knew how to speak, but for some reason, she didn't say a word. Do you have a place you want to go, or something you want to do? Zhou asked Yer. Yer shook her head slightly. Before she was born, she had been refined into a kamine by the Shao brothers. She probably didn't know where she wanted to go or what she wanted. Then follow me first. However, if you follow me, I have a few requests. If you can do it, you can follow me. If you can't, you can go by yourself, Zhou said to Yer. Yeah. Didn't say a word as she looked at Zhou. First, if you follow me, you are not allowed to hurt anyone without my orders. Second, you are not allowed to use goo to harm others without my permission. Third, you can reason with me, but you have to listen to me in the end. Fourth, don't casually show your strength in front of others. Can you do it? Zhou asked Yer. Yeah. I looked at Zhou and nodded. She didn't hesitate, but it was unknown if she really understood. Seeing Yer nod, Zhou felt very strange. Although he was somewhat happy, he was also somewhat worried. Even Zhou couldn't tell if Yer could be considered a human. If she still had the taboos of a kamine, there would probably be trouble in the future. However, at this point, Zhou could only take her back. He took Yer to buy some clothes. Although she didn't speak, she was very obedient. She did whatever Zhou said, looking like an ordinary obedient baby. She didn't have the ruthlessness to annihilate the Shao family at all. Old Zhou, where did you abduct a child? Li Xian asked in surprise when he saw Zhou return with a child. I picked her up on the way, Zhou answered. Could she have gotten lost? Li Xian asked. No, the place I went to is a dimensional zone where goo appear. No one will bring a child there, Zhou said. Who's so heartless to abandon such a cute little girl? Li Xian looked at the little girl with pity. I don't know, but I plan on adopting her and taking her there. Zhou took out the goo pot and stuffed it into Li Xian's hands. The two ice silkworms are inside. How's the Shao family? Li Xian held the goo pot and asked with an odd expression. They were destroyed by that kamine. Zhou didn't elaborate because the scene back then was just too tragic. This is what they deserve. Aren't they afraid of the wrath of heaven for killing and digging out the infant? Li Xian said. Does this child have a name? Li Xian asked as he stroked Yer's head. Yer. I named her. When Zhou saw that Yer didn't have any special reaction when Li Xian touched her head, he felt relieved. What kind of name is this? How can such a cute little girl use such a name? You should at least be called Crescent Moon or something. Even the common Xiaoyao would be 10,000 times better than Yer, right? No, you have to give her a new name. Li Xian immediately shook his head when he heard Yer's name. We'll talk about it when we register. Yer can be treated as a nickname. Zhou really didn't know how to give names. Soon, the matter of the Shao family being wiped out overnight was discovered. Many people want to take a look and realize that there were traces of a large number of goo. They guessed that the Shao family had been wiped out by goo, but no one could explain the exact situation. The number 1 Shao family in Chiang Rai had been wiped out overnight. This became a legend in Chiang Rai, and there were all sorts of rumors. Li Xian planned on making a trip to the Dugu family with Worm Dugu to learn some knowledge about goo, but Zhou stayed behind. This was because there was still no definite news from Primordial Spore. He wanted to wait and see. Primordial Spore didn't successfully parasitize, but it didn't die either. Zhou didn't know what the situation was. Li Mabai also returned to Luoyang with Butterfly and Mute. Gu Shan Shui even called and said that he had found a way to trap the corpse bug and asked Zhou to retrieve the calabash. Zhou temporarily couldn't go to Mong Sat, so Gu Shan Shui got Gulu to deliver the calabash to him. As Zhou waited for news from Primordial Spore, he grinded dungeons. The ancient sword tomb and the Valley of No Return were very good dungeons that produced many good items. Now, Zhou mainly grinded these two dungeons. Furthermore, the other dungeons had mythical creatures and rare creatures. He had to grind them every time. Zhou had gone to the Snow Valley to the right of the Valley of No Return a few times, but the blood-colored avatar would quickly die every time he entered. It was fine flying in the air, but when he was in the air, he could only see the snow in the valley. He didn't see any goo. Up to now, Zhou still hadn't figured out why the blood-colored avatar had died in the snow. With Truth Listener and Supreme Hell King's abilities, I should be able to sense a goo hiding in the snow, no matter how small it is. Furthermore, the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder didn't react, meaning that it wasn't a taboo power. What killed the blood-colored avatar? Zhou studied it for a while, but failed to find the secret of the Snow Valley. Zhou guessed that most of the people who entered the Valley of No Return died in the Snow Valley. After all, those who dared to go there were all experts at nurturing goo. There would be a few people who had a way to deal with the goo in front of them. However, this Snow Valley wasn't something that could be dealt with just by knowing goo. While Zhou was gaming, Ye was sat on a small stool and looked at him. She didn't make a fuss. Although Ye didn't have a heartbeat, she wasn't much different from a normal child. She also needed to eat to grow. Zhou could sense that she was slowly growing at a speed similar to a normal child's. In a world that resembled a mystic realm, there was a huge palace that stood at the peak of a mountain. At the top of the palace was a huge statue that looked like a snake or dragon. On a mountain that resembled a heavenly pillar, there was only a single stone staircase that spiraled upwards. The foot of the mountain led all the way to the peak. At that moment, a white-robed man with lightning bolts running through his body walked to the stone steps. Wang Mingyuan, you actually dared to leave without permission and come to Dragon God Mountain instead of guarding the divine tree. Don't you know that this is where the dragon gods live? It's not a place a bastard like you can come. Are you tired of living? In front of the stone steps, a monster with a human body and a snake tail blocked Wang Mingyuan's path. From today onwards, I'm the king of the dragon gods, Wang Mingyuan said calmly. Chapter 806. The human-bodied, snake-tailed monster guarding the stone steps seemed to have heard the funniest thing in the world. It convulsed with laughter, almost to the point of tears. You really think highly of yourself. Don't tell me you really think that advancing to the mythical stage is impressive? In a dimensional war, the so-called mythical stage of you humans are just cannon fodder. This is because only by reaching that level can one cross dimensions without being killed by the barriers between different dimensions. Only an ancient forbidden land like Earth would take the mythical stage seriously. The monster continued, saying disdainfully, just like how humans on Earth can't survive in space because there's no oxygen and other conditions you need to survive there. Becoming a mythical creature is equivalent to humans learning to survive in an environment without oxygen in a dimensional battle. The monster continued, speaking disdainfully. There's naturally hope if you can learn to breathe and survive, Wang Mingyuan said. Only things that can't be done need hope. You have no way of understanding what kind of existence the Dragon King is. If an ant like you hadn't come out of an ancient forbidden land, you wouldn't even have the right to be a servant of the dragon gods, much less guard the divine tree. Yet, you actually dare challenge the Dragon King? You have no idea what's good for you. There's no need to find the Dragon King. I'll show you what true strength is today, the monster said as a strange power rose from its body. It struck out at Wang Mingyuan with one hand. The terrifying power transformed into a gigantic snake that devoured Wang Mingyuan. This casual strike's might was already comparable to Tyrant Behemoth in its absolute strength state. Wang Mingyuan continued to walk towards the stone steps, ignoring the terrifying attack of the giant snake. However, when the gigantic snake arrived in front of him, it automatically disintegrated and turned into nothingness in the blink of an eye. You've actually broken through the dimension wall? However, don't you think you have the right to fight my dragon gods just like that? Aren't you being too arrogant? Although the monster was arrogant, its expression turned serious. It no longer had its previous contempt. As it watched Wang Mingyuan walk over step by step, the monster clasped its hands together and presented a strange attack posture, like a venomous snake that could bite at any moment. I'll let you witness the true power of the dragon gods. Dragon God descends. As the monster roared, the strange power on its body rose to the extreme. The terrifying power immediately swept through the entire space. Giant serpent silhouettes, with a power that could destroy heaven and earth, bombarded Wang Mingyuan from all directions. Countless giant snake shadows tried to devour Wang Mingyuan, but when they reached Wang Mingyuan, they automatically disintegrated. They couldn't touch his body at all. It was as if his body was protected by a god. How? How is this possible? The monster was shocked to see that its dragon god's descent couldn't even touch Wang Mingyuan's clothes. Wang Mingyuan was less than 3 meters away from him, and the stone steps leading up to the mountain were right in front of him. Dragon, it's not like that. Wang Mingyuan glanced at the monster and gently waved his hand. The monster's body seemed to be grabbed by an invisible hand and was directly thrown out. Boom! His body slammed into the stone wall, creating a crater. All the bones in his body seemed to have shattered, and his body was covered in blood. After struggling a few times, he failed to stand up, but blood spewed out of his mouth. You've advanced to the Calamity Grade? The monster looked at Wang Mingyuan, who was pierced by countless lightning bolts, in horror, as though it had seen a ghost. Wang Mingyuan had advanced to the mythical stage and used the power of the 6 holy temples to break through the dimensional barrier and enter the dimension. It hadn't been long since he entered the dimension. He had even suffered the punishment of lightning penetrating his body. Yet, he had advanced to the Calamity Grade so quickly. This was just too shocking. Even among the Mythical 8, there were only a handful of people who could advance to the Calamity Grade so quickly. However, Wang Mingyuan didn't answer. He stepped onto the stone steps and walked towards the Dragon God Temple at the top of the mountain. Even if you advance to the Calamity Grade, you are only an ant in front of the great Dragon King. The monster roared, but he didn't receive any response. Zhou waited, but he didn't receive any news of Primordial Spore's success or failure. As it was too far away, he couldn't retrieve it. He couldn't help but feel anxious. From the looks of it, I can only make another trip to Dragon Corpse River and find the Dragon King goo. Even if I can't successfully parasitize it, I have to bring Primordial Spore back. With Tai Sui, the chick, by his side, Zhou wasn't afraid of goo at all. Therefore, he planned on making a trip to Dragon Corpse River himself. Zhou didn't know the family that built the boat, nor did he plan on spending a huge sum of money to buy such a special boat. He bought an ordinary speedboat and transported it to Dragon Corpse River. Friend, why did you get a speedboat to Dragon Corpse River? Someone who was preparing to enter Dragon Corpse River to catch goo saw Zhou speedboat and came forward to ask curiously. To catch goo in the river, Zhou answered. The person sized up Zhou and asked, Friend, are you from out of town? I just came to Chiang Rai a few days ago, Zhou answered honestly. No wonder. I'm afraid you still don't know the taboo of the Dragon Corpse River. Ordinary boats will be surrounded by goo worms when they enter the river. You have to first get a specially made boat that's resistant to goo worms, the man reminded him out of goodwill. Ordinary goo worms shouldn't attack my ship. As Zhou spoke, he picked up Yer and boarded the speedboat. He activated the speedboat's engine and set off for Dragon Corpse River. That person said to a disciple beside him, that young man is really crazy. He actually drove a speedboat into the Dragon Corpse River. Although the engine won't stall on the Dragon Corpse River, the goo in the Dragon Corpse River will be attracted by the engine's sound. When the time comes, they will crawl into the engine and cause damage to it. He actually brought a child with him. This person is really hopeless. One look and you can tell that he's from the East region. He's very arrogant. If he wants to die, there's nothing we can do to stop him. The disciple curled his lips and said. Zhou drove the speedboat as the chick and Tai Sui stood at the bow. As for she sat beside Zhou and sized up the Dragon Corpse River curiously. The goo in the Dragon Corpse River sensed the chick's aura and didn't dare approach the speedboat. However, extended her hand and beckoned. A few Gu approached and swam beside the speedboat as though they were protecting it. Since I've already retrieved the calabash, should I use you to subdue some Gu? Zhou thought to himself. Zhou naturally wasn't interested in ordinary Gu. If he really planned on subduing them, they would at least be at the level of the ice silkworm. It would be even better if he could subdue the Dragon King Gu. Chapter 807. The speedboat was much faster than the wooden boat. As it sped across the river, Zhou could clearly sense that he was getting closer and closer to primordial spore. His perception of primordial spore became stronger and stronger. To Gu rearing, the Dragon Corpse River was as dangerous as hell, but it wasn't dangerous in front of Zhou. He rushed all the way and quickly sensed where primordial spore was. Zhou could sense that primordial spore was below the boat. Furthermore, he could sense that the behemoth, the Dragon King Gu, was also below. As he was very close, Zhou could sense it more clearly this time. Primordial spore had been attempting to parasitize the Dragon King Gu and control its body. However, the Dragon King Gu was different from ordinary mythical creatures. Its body was an amalgamation, and so was its soul. It was formed from countless souls gathered together to form a whole. Primordial spore wanted to parasitize the Dragon King Gu's soul, but it realized that it could only control a portion of the soul. No matter which part of the Dragon King Gu's soul it parasitized, it couldn't completely control the Dragon King Gu. Therefore, it was in a stalemate. It was easy to complete the soul parasitization, but it was impossible to control the Dragon King Gu no matter what. Unless primordial spore could split into thousands of tiny primordial spore and carry out a complete parasitization, it could truly control the Dragon King Gu. Can you control the Dragon King Gu below? Zhou pinned his hopes on Ya. However, Yer shook her head. She couldn't control the Dragon King Gu. Is it because it's too strong? Zhou asked Yer. Although Yer had the ability to control Gu, there was a limit. The Dragon King Gu was already a top mythical creature, so it was normal for Yer to be unable to control it with her mental strength. To his surprise, Yer shook her head again. However, this time, she said, I can't communicate. You mean that you can control Gu because you can communicate with them? You can't control Gu that you can't communicate with or are unwilling to cooperate with. Zhou immediately understood Yer's abilities. Yer nodded. From the looks of it, Zhou's guess was right. However, for some reason, Yer and the Dragon King Gu couldn't communicate. This way, Zhou's hope of using Yer's ability to subdue the Dragon King Gu was shattered. Is there any other way? After some thought, Zhou didn't have a good solution. Even if he made Tai Sui transform into a fish and enter the river, it would at most eat a portion of the Dragon King Gu's body. It was impossible to kill it. With this in mind, Zhou suddenly had an idea. Since I can't subdue it, I wonder if I can store it in the calabash. If I can store it in the calabash, even if I can't use it, I can still give it to Tai Sui as food. But how can I put such a big Dragon King Gu into the calabash? After being removed from the vines, the gourd no longer had the ability to absorb the Gu worms. However, the Gu worms would not resist entering the gourd, but they would not take the initiative to drill into the gourd. Looks like I can only chase the dog into a dead end. Zhou used Truth Listener's ability to scout the terrain at the bottom of the river before summoning Tai Sui. Zhou first got Tai Sui to use its mimicry ability to transform into a tiny ancient tadpole. However, the ancient tadpole that Tai Sui transformed into was white. It was different from the color of a real ancient tadpole, but there was no difference in appearance. After placing Tai Sui in the river, Tai Sui swam towards the bottom of the river. Zhou also put on the dragon scale armor formed by the demon Blood True Dragon. He wore the invisibility cloak and entered the river with the calabash. However, Zhou headed in another direction. The Dragon King Gu had suffered greatly from Tai Sui, so it would definitely be afraid when it saw Tai Sui. However, Tai Sui had previously transformed into the form of a chick. Now that it had transformed into an ancient tadpole, the Dragon King Gu failed to recognize it. Seeing a tiny tadpole approach it, the Dragon King Goo unleashed its dragon might and swallowed Tai Sui in one mouthful. When Tai Sui entered the Dragon King Goo's body, it immediately bit left and right and began devouring the Dragon King Goo's body. The Dragon King Goo was alarmed when it realized that the tadpole it had devoured wasn't dead and was still devouring its body. It wanted to get Tai Sui out of its body. It was not a real dragon, but a condensation of countless miniature goo insects. It could control its body freely. There was a hole in its abdomen, and Tai Sui was swallowing its body, but it was suddenly thrown out. After Tai Sui came out, it directly used its mimicry ability and transformed into the Dragon King Goo. The two Dragon King Goo appeared at the bottom of the river, making it almost impossible to tell the real from the fake. However, the real Dragon King Goo could change color, but Tai Sui was always white. It was easy for people who knew to tell the difference. Unfortunately, Tai Sui's mimicry ability was just a facade. No matter how big and ferocious it became, its strength was still that small. It didn't have the ability of the Dragon King Goo. It only looked more terrifying. However, the Dragon King Goo was frightened. Tai Sui was its nemesis, and now that it had become so big, the Dragon King Goo was afraid that it would be devoured by Tai Sui. It immediately fled frantically. Tai Sui's speed couldn't keep up with the Dragon King Goo, so it could only slowly chase behind. It was useless to look like the Dragon King Goo. It didn't have the Dragon King Goo's speed, so it couldn't catch up. The Dragon King Goo was given a huge fright as it fled in a panic. It only wanted to stay as far away from Tai Sui as possible. Zhou used Primordial Spore to take advantage of a portion of the Dragon King Goo's soul, allowing it to have some effect and affect the Dragon King Goo's escape. That was originally the right path. The possibility of the Dragon King Goo choosing that place was the highest. Zhou was only buying insurance. He stood at the narrow entrance at the bottom of the river and watched the Dragon King Goo rush out. When it came close, he suddenly took out the calabash from the invisibility cloak and opened the calabash's entrance. The Dragon King Goo immediately slammed its head into the calabash as half its head drilled in. Zhou was originally afraid that the Dragon King Goo would resist, but to his surprise, after the Dragon King Goo discovered the space inside the calabash, it continued burrowing in. Soon, the Dragon King Goo's entire body drilled in. Zhou closed the entrance, and the Dragon King Goo couldn't come out. The Dragon King Goo didn't seem to have any intention of coming out. It entrenched itself in the calabash. Without seeing Tai Sui chase after it, it obediently stopped there. Zhou never expected things to go so smoothly. He was somewhat surprised. Seeing Tai Sui, who had transformed into the Dragon King Goo, swim over, Zhou was somewhat curious. He rode on Tai Sui's back and got it to rush out of the water with him. The goo-rearing people he had encountered previously happened to be nearby. When they saw Zhou when speedboats stop on the river and the girl still sitting in the boat, Zhou was nowhere to be seen. They imagined that Zhou had died and were about to save the girl when they suddenly heard the sound of water splashing. Chapter 808. I've already warned that fellow not to drive a speedboat into Dragon Corpse River, but he refused to listen. I'm afraid he won't be able to survive now. It's considered lucky that this little girl wasn't killed. However, without her family, how can she survive at such a young age? What a sin. As the goo breeder spoke, he was about to go over to save her when he suddenly saw the water churn. A huge object rushed out of the water. Heavens! Dragon King Goo. That's the Dragon King Goo. When the goo breeder saw the gigantic creature's appearance, his body trembled. He was so terrified that he even forgot to escape. Their legs went limp and they couldn't move at all. To goo breeders, the Dragon King Goo was almost a godlike existence. However, at that moment, they saw the Dragon King Goo lower its head in the direction of the speedboat. That little girl is doomed. They all imagined that the Dragon King Goo was going to eat the little girl. To their surprise, after the Dragon King Goo lowered its head, there was a person standing on its head. That person jumped down from the Dragon King Goo's head and landed in the boat. The goo breeders couldn't believe their eyes. Someone actually dared to stand on the Dragon King Gu's head. Furthermore, the Dragon Corpse River's water was extraordinary. Humans couldn't touch the water at all, or they might become zombies. That person had come out with the Dragon King Gu. Clearly, his entire body had come into contact with the river water. When they saw the person's appearance clearly, they were even more shocked. That person was the young man they had seen previously. He didn't seem to have suffered any injuries. What was even more exaggerated was that he even patted the Dragon King Gu's head as though he was comforting his pet. Heavens! Is he the reincarnation of the Gu god? How can that Dragon King Gu let a human touch its noble head? Everyone was dumbfounded. Zhou also saw them and got Tai Sui to return to the river. At the bottom of the river, it transformed into an ancient tadpole and followed beside the speedboat. Zhou started the speedboat and left a long ripple on the river surface as he headed for the exit of Dragon Corpse River. Gu god. That must be the Gu god. The Gu breeder muttered to himself as he looked in the direction of the speedboat's departure in shock. How could humans treat the Dragon King Gu like a pet? Only a god could have such authority, and it had to be a god of Gu. From then on, there were legends of the Dragon King Gu and the Gu god in the vicinity of Dragon Corpse River. Someone even built a Gu god statue near Dragon Corpse River. A mysterious young man held a little girl's hand as he stood on the Dragon King Gu, as though he was about to soar into the sky. Later, the legend of the Gu god was accepted by more and more people. Many people in the southern district would worship the Gu god, but that was something that happened a long time later. After leaving Dragon Corpse River with the Dragon King Gu, Zhou set off for Mongsat. After meeting Gu Shanshui, he returned to Luoyang. Although he didn't have Mute leading the way, Zhou had already memorized the route. Furthermore, with the chick Tai Sui and Ye beside him, he didn't encounter any danger. On the way back, Zhou kept studying the fusion of the ancient splitting tadpole. Zhou's ideal combination was to fuse the ancient splitting tadpole and primordial spore. If he could fuse a primordial spore that could split, it would be invincible. However, the compatibility between the two was too low. It was less than 20%. Furthermore, he didn't know what the outcome would be after the fusion, so Zhou didn't dare fuse them. He matched the few mythical companion beasts he already had with the ancient splitting tadpole, but he realized that their compatibility was very low. The only one with a higher compatibility was Tai Sui. It reached a compatibility of 69%. Zhou didn't dare fuse with it. Although the compatibility was very high, Tai Sui had the ability to restrain microorganisms. Even the Dragon King Gu was afraid of it. If he lost this ability after the fusion, it wouldn't be worth it. Is there no other fusion option? Zhou matched a few rare epic companion beasts with the ancient splitting tadpole, but he realized that the compatibility wasn't high. The only one with higher compatibility was the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General. Why is this thing so strange? Those that have high compatibility with it are all strange companion beasts. I'll take a look. If there really isn't any other choice, I could try fusing with the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General. Zhou was somewhat depressed and had no choice but to give up on fusing with the ancient splitting tadpole. In fact, Zhou hadn't spent much time grinding recently because he was studying the First Order of Chaos. He wanted to advance the Chaos Egg Life Soul to a perfect body. The First Order of Chaos was the same as the Tao Sutra. They were essence energy arts that mainly enhanced essence energy attributes. Zhou wanted to give it a try and see if he could push his stats to 41 points if the Chaos Egg advanced to a perfect body. After Zhou's research, he discovered some ways to use the Chaos Egg. This Chaos Egg had a very strong defense. Although it was only a primordial body, its defense was already comparable to an ordinary mythical creature. Zhou used the light concealment sword to cleave at the Chaos Egg and needed 2 strikes to leave a mark on it. If he used the Golden Overlord sword, he could split it apart with 1 strike. This was already rather sick. After all, it was only a primordial body. If it advanced to a perfect body, it might be able to withstand a mythical attack without any injuries. Also, inside the Chaos Egg, Zhou's injuries and essence energy could quickly recover. It was like a high-level repair device. The only pity was that the Chaos Egg didn't have any offensive abilities. It could only be used for defense and self-repair. As the Chaos Egg's ability was somewhat similar to Li Xian's Life Soul, Zhou wanted to ask if the Chaos Egg could advance only after being shattered. After a few attempts, although the Chaos Egg quickly repaired itself after being injured, it didn't become stronger. After all, after Zhou was injured, the Chaos Egg seemed to become stronger after helping him recover. No way. Could it be that this thing can only evolve by helping me heal my injuries? Do I have to seek a beating for no reason? After Zhou came to this conclusion, he was extremely depressed. However, the facts proved that the Chaos Egg was indeed becoming stronger while helping him repair his body. Furthermore, the Chaos Egg was very strange. It would only become stronger after Zhou was healed by different injuries. If it was the same kind of injury, although it would heal Zhou, it wouldn't become stronger. I have to choose the method of being beaten up. Isn't this life soul too sick? Zhou was so depressed that he almost wanted to give up on this essence energy art. However, after some thought, he couldn't find any substitutes. All he could do was attempt to suffer different injuries in-game and let the Chaos Egg help him repair them. The Chaos Egg became stronger bit by bit. By the time Zhou returned to Luoyang, the Chaos Egg had already shown signs of advancing to an evolved body. Little one, did you bring back an illegitimate daughter? Am I going to be a grandmother? Not long after Zhou returned to Luoyang, Ouyang suddenly ran over and looked at Yer, who was sitting on the sofa, in pleasant surprise. Chapter 809. A dark cloud hung over Zhou's head as he explained. How can I have an illegitimate daughter? I picked her up. Picked her up? I thought she was your daughter. I thought I would have fun in the future. Ouyang was greatly disappointed, as though she wished Zhou had 10 illegitimate children. If you like children, you can adopt one yourself, Zhou said. Ouyang rolled her eyes at him. I have 2 sons and a daughter. Isn't it embarrassing for me to adopt a grandson? That punk, Tianzhua, is a letdown. All he knows is work every day. He doesn't even have a partner. I'm counting on you and little Jing now. Don't learn from Tianzhua. Find a wife early and give me grandchildren to play with. Sislan, I'm only a sophomore. There's no rush, right? Zhou was rendered speechless. Why not? It's easier to deceive girls in school. If you can't even deceive them in school, it will be even harder to find them when you leave, Ouyang said. Zhou didn't know what to say. Anyway, you have to be more diligent. I think that Wang Lu is pretty good. Unfortunately, she will definitely be in charge of the Wang family in the future. It's impossible for her to get married. By the way, don't you have a female classmate from Guide High School? Her name seems to be Fang Ruashi, right? I think that young lady isn't bad. Her, but is big and she's fertile. Sislan, have some tea. Zhou hurriedly poured a cup of tea for Ouyang, finally making her stop. Ouyang drank a mouthful of tea and glanced at Ye, who was sitting there. She asked, this little girl looks pretty good, but unfortunately, she's not your biological daughter. What's her name? She doesn't have a name yet. I gave her a nickname, Yer, Zhou answered. Ouyang sighed and said, in this era, too many people have died, and there are many orphans. It's still all right in Luoyang. There are special places to take in orphans. At least they still have a way out. If it were in smaller cities, orphans would really have no way out once their parents die. They can still live if they meet a kind-hearted person to adopt them. But in this world, how can there be so many kind-hearted people? You still need to cultivate and study. Furthermore, you are still a child. How do you know how to take care of a child? I'll help you take care of her. When you have time, go home and visit her, Ouyang said as she walked in front of Yer, wanting to hug her. Sislan, Yer isn't an ordinary child. She's very sensible and doesn't need me to take care of her. She knows everything and can do it herself. Zhou hurriedly stopped Ouyang. Zhou had seen Yer's ruthlessness in destroying the Xiao family. He didn't dare let Yer follow Ouyang to the Yin family. If someone from Yin family made her unhappy, the consequences would be unimaginable. What can a little kid like her know? Don't worry, I brought up Tianzhua and Xiaojing myself. I have experience. As Ouyang Lan spoke, she revealed an amiable smile and spread her arms at Ye-er. Ye-er, be good. Come home with pretty sis, all right? Beautiful sister has a lot of delicious candies and beautiful clothes at home. Ye-er sat on the sofa and looked at Ouyang Lan before turning his head to the side. The corners of Ouyang Lan's eyes twitched as she took 2 steps forward and came in front of Ye. She continued, follow pretty sis. There are many toys and delicious food. Ye-er turned his face to the other side as Ouyang Lan followed. Zhou was rendered speechless. Ouyang Lan had just said that other children were boring, but now she looked like she had to bring Ye back. Sis Lan, how's the investigation on Chu-He? Zhou was afraid that this awkward scene would continue, so he hurriedly found a topic. Furthermore, Zhou really wanted to know if Chu-He, who went to Zhuolu, was real. On the surface, there's nothing wrong with Chu-He who went to Zhuolu. All the timing matches. If you didn't discover Chu-He in Netherworld City, no one would suspect that there's anything wrong with Zhuolu's Chu-He. Ouyang Lan paused for a moment before continuing. However, because everything about this Chu-He is perfect, it makes me feel that something is amiss. However, I can't figure anything out, so I changed the direction of the investigation and investigated all the members of the team. In the end, all of them have clean backgrounds. On the surface, there's nothing wrong with them. However, I realized that all of them have something in common. What is it? Zhou immediately asked. After these people arrived at Zhuolu, most of them didn't or rarely contacted their families. Although communication isn't convenient now, and there's no signal in Zhuolu, they will more or less return to the encampment. It's normal for them to call their family and friends. Even if there are a few workaholics or heartless people among them, it can't be that most people are like that, right? I want to see their families and confirm this matter. They really rarely receive calls. Even if they do, they're the ones who called. Furthermore, the other party expressed that they were very busy. They hung up the phone in a hurry after a short conversation. Zhou frowned when he heard that. Could it be that many members of the former principal's team were like Chu-He and were impersonated? From the looks of it, it's very possible. Ouyang Lan nodded. Who did such a thing? What's his goal? Zhou said after some thought. This is also what I don't understand. Among those people, many of them are authoritative figures in various fields. It's not easy to get someone to impersonate them, not to mention to do it flawlessly. Such a grand setup is not something an ordinary person can do. Furthermore, there should be a motive for doing all of this, but what is it? Zhuolu has been mostly explored. From the looks of it, it doesn't seem to be anything worth doing, Ouyang Lan said. Zhou felt that Ouyang Lan was right. To set up such a huge trap, the motive must be extraordinary. However, what was there in Zhuolu that was worth setting up such a trap? The former principal and company were only studying Zhuolu. They didn't have the ability to kill Torch Dragon and Qiongqi. Ignoring Torch Dragon and Qiongqi, even Aoyin could kill them all. If the other party had the ability to set up such a huge trap, they could have formed their own expedition team. There was no need for them to follow the former principal and company. What does the former principal and company have that others don't? Zhou asked. I'm also thinking about this question. Based on the current information, there's no valid answer, Ouyang Lan said helplessly. Zhou suddenly thought of the password left behind by the former principal and the metal block containing the strange coin. Could it be that what they want is that coin? Zhou thought. On second thought, Zhou thought of the silver-haired companion beast locked up in Qin Shiyuan's shop. The large metal block connected to the chain on his body was related to the small metal block Zhou had obtained. If he hadn't seen the large metal block, Zhou wouldn't have imagined that the string of numbers the former principal had given him was a password. Could there be something inside that huge piece of metal? Zhou thought to himself. Chapter 8:10. Should I give it a try and see if that password can open the huge metal block beside the silver-haired companion beast? Zhou couldn't help but think. If it were in the past, Zhou wouldn't have had a chance to approach the metal block, but it was different now. With the invisibility cloak, he should be able to avoid the various surveillance cameras in the shop and reach the metal block without anyone noticing. Zhou could have gone openly and even bought the silver-haired companion beast, but he had a nagging feeling that there was something wrong with Qin Shiyuan. He wasn't willing to let Qin Shiyuan know that he was interested in the metal block. Ouyang Lan ultimately failed to take Ye away and returned indignantly. Zhou considered for a while before deciding to head to Shiyuan's shop to take a look. Now that Ouyang Lan's investigation had reached a bottleneck, it was probably very difficult for her to make any progress. Perhaps the metal block that locked the silver-haired companion beast could give Zhou new ideas. After packing up and feeding the companion beast that needed to be fed, demonic neonate began evolving again after eating a few longevity fruits. I should be able to advance to the epic stage this time, right? Zhou was delighted. Demonic neonate was one step closer to the mythical stage. However, looking at the number of longevity fruits he had left, he felt that they weren't enough to support demonic neonate's evolution again. Thankfully, I still have Grim Demon's rations. If it really doesn't work, I can make up the numbers. Zhou unsummoned the evolving demonic neonate. Before she fully evolved, he didn't need to count on her combat strength. Banana Fairy was still evolving. She had been evolving for quite some time. Based on the time, it seemed like she was about to advance to the mythical stage. After packing up his things, Zhou set off for Qin Shiyuan's shop. Zhou didn't enter the shop directly. Instead, he went to a coffee shop near Shiyuan's shop. He ordered a cup of coffee and sat by the window. He planned on drinking coffee while using Truth Listener to scan Qin Shiyuan's shop. This coffee shop was relatively close to Shiyuan's shop. Sitting here, Truth Listener's range could envelop the entire shop. He had to figure out the exact situation inside first. "Sir, your coffee." The waiter served the coffee and politely placed it in front of Zhou. "Thank you." Zhou's attention was focused on the Shiyuan shop, so he didn't pay attention to the situation here. When he heard the familiar voice, he looked up and couldn't help but be taken aback. The person who brought the coffee over was Gu Dian. Zhou subconsciously looked around. Indeed, it was as he had imagined. The coffee shop was deserted without any customers. Does the owner of this shop have a grudge against money? He actually hired Gu Jian as a waiter. Zhou felt that the owner of the shop must have a screw loose. "Gu Jian, why are you here?" Zhou asked Gu Jian in puzzlement. "Working for money," Gu Jian answered. "Do you earn more working here than fighting dimensional creatures and selling companion eggs?" Zhou was somewhat puzzled. Gu Jian was considered a top figure in Sunset College. If he sold the companion eggs he obtained, his income was definitely not something the average person could compare with. Furthermore, he was only a waiter at a coffee shop. His salary wasn't much. Yes, there weren't many customers in the cafe, so Gu Jian didn't leave. "No way. This coffee shop can give you such a high salary?" Zhou found it unbelievable that a waiter could earn such a high salary. Furthermore, this coffee shop didn't have much business, so it was impossible for it to offer a high salary. 150,000 a month, Gu Dian answered. Zhou spat out the mouthful of coffee he had just drunk. He widened his eyes at Gu Jian. "The boss here gives you 150,000 a month?" Zhou felt that the boss must be crazy. Otherwise, he had other motives. Otherwise, how could he give Gu Jian such a high salary? Gu Jian nodded. Then, when he saw a customer enter, he said, "I'm going to work." Zhou watched Gu Jian walk over and politely said, "Welcome." When the young couple saw Gu Jian, they seemed to be frightened. They immediately took 2 steps back and didn't even enter the door. They turned around and quickly walked away. I knew it. With Gu Jian around, how can business be good? Zhou couldn't figure out why the owner of this shop would hire Gu Jian. After taking a sip of coffee, he found the taste pretty good. It was actually hand-ground coffee. Unable to figure out the reason, Zhou had no choice but to put it aside and begin scanning the Shiyuan shop. Truth Listener's ability enveloped the vicinity of the Shiyuan shop. It was as though the shop had turned transparent. Zhou could hear every corner of the building clearly. To Zhou's surprise, in the 4th basement, The floor where the silver-haired companion beast was located was enveloped by a mysterious force, as though it was shrouded in a thick fog. Zhou raised Truth Listener's strength to its limits as the fourth level enveloped by the thick fog slowly became clear. The various companion beasts imprisoned inside could also be seen clearly. Zhou focused his attention on the room where the silver-haired companion beast was. Indeed, he saw the silver-haired companion beast sitting beside the huge metal block with its head lowered as though it had fallen asleep. When Zhou's attention landed on him, the silver-haired companion beast actually raised its head and clearly looked in Zhou's direction. It was as though it was looking at Zhou, leaving him alarmed. He can see me? Or is it a coincidence? Zhou frowned slightly. Suddenly, the companion beast whose silver hair covered most of its face grinned at him. Then, its lips moved slightly as though it was saying something. However, he didn't make a sound. However, from the shape of his mouth, he seemed to be saying, "I'll wait for you here." Indeed, he can see me. Zhou was somewhat alarmed. After Truth Listener advanced to the mythical stage, its abilities were already very powerful. Furthermore, its hearing was different from using its gaze to observe others. Its gaze was active. When it looked at others, it wasn't surprising that people with sharp senses could discover it. However, Truth Listener's hearing was passive. It was only gathering information. The silver-haired companion beast was actually able to discover his location. This ability was a little too impressive. What's the background of that silver-haired companion beast? Zhou was puzzled as he hesitated about entering. Now, Zhou was somewhat worried. If the chain that bound the silver-haired companion beast was unlocked after entering the password, wouldn't he have done something foolish? What does he mean by waiting for me? Could it be that he knew I would come? Zhou was alarmed and puzzled. The entire matter was odd. From a moment the former principal sent in the password, Zhou felt that something was amiss. As the matter developed, Zhou realized that the matter wasn't as simple as he had imagined. At the very least, the silver-haired companion beast in front of him was definitely a terrifying existence. If the silver-haired companion beast had been placed in the store by the former principal, how could the former principal have captured such a companion beast? The former principal shouldn't have such strength. Chapter 8:11. Zhou decided to enter Shiyuan's shop to take a look at the silver-haired companion beast. No matter how strong he was, since he was locked up, and even a companion shop could trap him, there was no reason for anything to happen to Qin Shiyuan and company. As long as I don't touch the metal piece or enter the password, I should be fine. Zhou made up his mind. After paying the bill, he left the coffee shop and found an empty spot. He put on the invisibility cloak and walked towards Shiyuan's shop. Zhou had already figured out the situation in Shiyuan's shop. Coincidentally, Qin Shiyuan wasn't in the shop either. He avoided the spots where he might be discovered and slowly approached the elevator that led to the fourth floor. To him, there were no secrets in the entire building. Zhou passed through some ventilation tubes and quickly arrived at the top level. It wasn't that he didn't want to go straight to the fourth floor, but that it was completely sealed. There were no ventilation tubes that could reach there. However, this didn't stump Zhou. There was only one entrance to the fourth floor, a special elevator. It was in Qin Shiyuan's office. Zhou remembered that the last time he came with Ouyang Lan, she could still take him to the fourth floor. Now, the public elevator had been sealed. Only here could he go straight to the fourth floor. Since Qin Shiyuan wasn't around, Zhou found an opportunity where no one was around and released Primordial Spore. He let it enter the keyhole and opened the lock from the inside. Zhou easily entered his office. In the same way, he opened the locked elevator and successfully arrived at the empty fourth floor. All kinds of locks naturally couldn't stump Zhou. Miniature companion beasts like Gu could enter the lock, so it was too easy to unlock it. In his invisible state, Zhou could do whatever he wanted in the shop. Soon, he arrived at the room where the silver-haired companion beast was. Zhou didn't enter directly because there were many cameras in the room. There were even several cameras installed opposite the room. Even if he opened the door invisibly, he would be seen by the people in the surveillance room the moment the door moved. Just as Zhou was considering how to enter, he suddenly realized that the electricity in the entire building had gone out. This was somewhat different from a power outage. If there was a power outage, it was only a power outage. Some equipment would still have stored electricity, such as electronic watches, cell phones, and electrical appliances with batteries. They could all continue working. But now, the electricity in the entire building seemed to have been sucked away. There was not a single drop left, and all the electronic devices had lost their functions. Zhou immediately knew that it was definitely the silver-haired companion beast inside. Although there was a door between them, the silver-haired companion beast was smiling at him as though the door didn't exist. "You finally came," the silver-haired companion beast said. This time, not only did he open his mouth, but he also made a sound. It was different from how he had only used lips to speak to him. "You know I would come?" Zhou didn't push the door open. Instead, he spoke to the silver-haired companion beast through the door. In fact, there was no need to open the door. They could see each other. "When I first saw you, I knew that you were the person chosen by Ouyang Ting. So you would definitely come?" the silver-haired companion beast said. "Why me?" Zhou didn't ask why he was chosen because the other party would know that he didn't know anything. When the time came, he would consider if he should tell him. Now, when Zhou asked why he was chosen, the other party would always say something. Perhaps he could obtain some useful information from it before continuing to communicate with the other party. "Because you aren't smart enough," the silver-haired companion beast said. Zhou looked at the silver-haired companion beast in a daze. He had imagined many possibilities, but he never expected such an answer. The silver-haired companion beast continued with a smile. "There are some things that too smart people can't do. The person we need is someone who isn't too smart, but he's not stupid. At the same time, he's very talented. He can occasionally have an idea and focus on doing things." "And then?" Zhou asked. "Then, you were chosen by Ouyang Ting. I think he has good taste. You are indeed someone who can focus on doing things," the silver-haired companion beast said with a smile. "Then what can I do?" Zhou asked again. "I don't know." The silver-haired companion beast's answer once again exceeded Zhou's expectations. "How can you not know?" Zhou frowned. "Because I don't know how far you can go, I don't know what you can do in the end. Different levels of ability mean different things you can do. When you were still a child, your parents wouldn't let you work to earn money. If you were a man, no one would ask you to use your stomach to give birth. Therefore, what you can do doesn't depend on anyone else. It's only related to your own abilities," the silver-haired companion beast said. "I'm not here to listen to you preach philosophy. If that's all you want to say to me, I think I should leave," Zhou said. "All right, then I'll say something that interests you. Do you know the levels of the mythical stage?" The silver-haired companion beast changed the topic, but Zhou didn't understand why he would suddenly say this. Under such circumstances, there might be people coming to check on the 4th level at any time. Shouldn't he say something related to himself? "Are you talking about the level above the mythical stage?" Zhou asked patiently. "That description isn't right. In fact, the mythical stage itself contains many different levels. The mythical stage you're talking about now is just the threshold of the mythical stage," the silver-haired companion beast said. "Then what are the levels of the mythical stage?" Zhou asked. "If you want to know what level the mythical stage is, you first have to know what a god is." "Do you know what god is?" the silver-haired companion beast said unhurriedly. "Can our communication be simpler and more effective? I don't think I'll have much time to listen to your stories here." "The people in this shop won't give me that much time either," Zhou said. The silver-haired companion beast continued without batting an eyelid. "In ancient times, humans in a primitive society were afraid of the unknown and danger. And by materializing this fear, gods were born. For example, humans were afraid of lightning, so they imagined that the lightning was a terrifying life form. That was how the thunder god came to be. Humans are afraid of heavy rain because heavy rain can make humans sick, so there's rain god. Another example is those powerful creatures, tigers, wolves, snakes, eagles, and so on. Human strength is no match for them. Due to fear, they worship them. They hope that they can be as powerful as those ferocious beasts. Hence, there's totem worship. It's also a type of god. Therefore, the first level of the mythical stage is the terror stage. Any mythical creature that can instill fear belongs to this level. This is also the weakest level of the mythical stage. Currently, all the mythical companion beasts on the rankings belong to this level. Chapter 8:12. Isn't this classification a little wrong? Many legendary and epic creatures can also instill fear in people, right? Joan said, "Sorry, there's a problem with my expression. This classification is based on dimensional civilizations. Legendary and epic creatures on Earth aren't qualified to enter the ranking of dimensional civilizations," the silver-haired companion beast said. "All right, continue." Joan shrugged helplessly. Floods, earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanic eruptions, and so on. These are powerful forces that humans can't control or resist. Once they happen, they can only wait for death. It's called the calamity grade, also known as the calamity grade. This is the second level of the mythical stage. To be able to reach this level of mythical creatures is considered quite accomplished in dimensional civilizations, the silver-haired companion beast said. Calamity grade? Joan silently recited the name. Although calamities are terrifying, they will eventually pass one day. As for some powers, they are enough to destroy everything. In ancient times, people were worried that the sky would collapse. Some people were worried that the land they lived in would be destroyed. A power that can destroy the world is known as the apocalypse in dimensional civilizations. The silver-haired companion beast smiled and said, "Of course, the so-called apocalypse is only relative to Earth. In fact, in dimensional civilizations, there are no existences that can truly destroy the world. Furthermore, in dimensional civilizations, there are no so-called gods. There are only indescribable things. The so-called apocalypse powers don't cause too much destruction in dimensional civilizations. This has to do with the composition of the world. Compared to dimensional civilizations, Earth is just too weak." "What happens after the apocalypse?" Joan asked. "There hasn't been such a life form of the moment, so it can't be defined," the silver-haired companion beast said. "Then what level are you?" Joan asked as he stared at the silver-haired companion beast. "I'm only at the terror grade. In an ancient forbidden land like Earth, it's impossible for an existence above the terror grade to appear." "Why?" "Because this is an ancient forbidden land. There's no reason to speak of. This is the rule of the ancient forbidden land. Even if those terrifying creatures at the apocalypse stage enter the ancient forbidden land, they will still be reduced to the terror grade." "What's an ancient forbidden land?" Joan only wanted to know as much as possible. If he missed this opportunity, who else could tell him? "I don't know. Since ancient times, dimensional civilizations have called Earth this way. Only a place like Earth would have such weak life. Therefore, many dimensional civilizations wanted to explore Earth and find the secrets here. In the past, there were several mythical wars on Earth because of this. There were traces of dimensional civilizations behind them." The silver-haired companion beast paused for a moment before continuing. "As there have been too many divine battles on Earth, the weakened dimensional civilization creatures entered and ended up dying here. The losses were heavy. Now that the various dimensional civilizations had reached an agreement, they would no longer send a large number of their clansmen into Earth, nor would they trigger a war of gods on Earth. Each race would only send a guardian to Earth and sign a contract with the humans on Earth. They would fight each other, and the final victor would represent the dimensional civilization that would have the rights to Earth for 100 years. 100 years later, a new guardian will enter Earth and start the battle of the guardians again to determine the ownership of Earth for the next 100 years. Why must the guardians decide who the Earth belongs to? "We humans are the masters of Earth," Joan said. The silver-haired companion beast curled its lips and said, "That's typical human thinking. In fact, humans are just one of the millions of lives on Earth. Humans use their powerful strength to conquer other life forms and become the rulers of Earth. Now that stronger life forms have entered Earth and become the new rulers, isn't that only natural? If you want to blame someone, you can only blame yourself for being too weak. You can't even advance to the terror grade. That's the original sin. Zhou felt that something was amiss with the silver-haired companion beast's words, but he couldn't think of a reason to refute him. Why must guardians contract humans? Can't they just fight each other? Zhou changed the topic. Because guardians have a lot of room for growth, but Earth's rules don't allow existences above the terregrade to appear on Earth. However, there's an exception. If you humans use your bodies as carriers, you can unleash power above the terregrade in a short period of time without being restricted by the rules of the ancient sealed zone. Therefore, guardians can only continue growing and win by contracting with you humans, the silver-haired companion beast explained. I see. Zhou finally knew why the powerful guardians chose humans to contract. It was all to win. With this in mind, it wasn't unreasonable for guardians to choose to betray some weaker contractors. After all, there was almost no chance of them winning by following a weak contractor. Naturally, they could only constantly find stronger contractors. Of course, as a human, Zhou didn't like guardians, much less the dimensional civilizations that treated Earth as a gambling table and battlefield. What if all the guardians fail in the end? Zhou heart stirred as he asked the silver-haired companion beast. Haha, good question. Ouyang Ting asked the same question back then, but there's still no answer because no existence other than the guardians has obtained the final victory, the silver-haired companion beast said. Zhou had already seen someone come down in the elevator, so he asked, someone's here. If you have something to say it quickly. What do you want me to do? Ouyang Ting wants to know the answer to your question, so he's been searching for a way to win. However, his body can't take it anymore. He's too old, so it's impossible for him to participate in such a battle again. Therefore, he wants to find someone who can win the answer for him. From the looks of it, he has chosen you, the silver-haired companion beast said. Has he found a way to win? Zhou asked. The method is in this metal box. Open it, and you will know the answer, the silver-haired companion beast said as he pointed at the metal block connected to the chain on his body. Zhou looked at the metal block, but he wasn't sure if the silver-haired companion beast's words were trustworthy. The elevator door opened, and someone entered basement 4, heading straight for the silver-haired companion beast's room. It was none other than Qin Shiyuan, who had rushed back. After realizing that the silver-haired companion beast was still there, and that there was nothing wrong with the metal block, Qin Shiyuan heaved a sigh of relief. However, he still ordered the people around him to search the entire basement 4. Chapter 8:13. Zhou used the invisibility cloak's 3 minutes of invisibility to leave the Shiyuan store. He didn't enter the password to open the metal block. Firstly, time didn't allow it. Secondly, what the silver-haired companion beast had said was only his side of the story. Before he understood it clearly, Zhou wasn't willing to casually open the metal block. At the very least, Zhou didn't know what the anchor in the woman's head meant. Since there was such a pattern engraved on the metal block, there had to be some meaning. Zhou planned on finding an opportunity to ask the silver-haired companion beast again. It wouldn't be too late to open the metal box after figuring out the situation. After all, he was the only one who knew the password. It was impossible for others to open it. After returning to his dorm, he saw the antelope, Yi and Chick watching television. They were safe and sound, so Zhou heaved a sigh of relief. The Chick was fine, but Zhou was afraid that the antelope and Yi would clash. Who knew what would happen? Zhou didn't wish to see the school being besieged by a sea of goo. However, on careful thought, goo-type companion beasts were typically in the South District. Not every place had goo. Yeah, could only communicate with goo. In a place without goo, it was impossible for her to summon a large number of goo even if she wanted to. With this in mind, Zhou was afraid that Yi would suffer because of the antelope. In comparison, Zhou felt that Yi was better. The antelope was a little too much of a scam. Zhou didn't really trust it. However, because the antelope was a little unfathomable and powerful, Zhou couldn't do anything to it. All he could do was silently acknowledge its existence. If the silver-haired companion beast isn't lying, the strongest creature on Earth is only at the terregrade. Only after those guardians and humans combine will they have a chance of breaking through to the terror grade. I should think of a way to advance to the mythical stage first. Otherwise, it's useless no matter what I say. Zhou opened the game and grinded as he was injured. Then, he used the Chaos Egg to heal himself. The more serious and bizarre the injuries he suffered, the faster the Chaos Egg grew. Zhou directly sought out mythical creatures to fight and used the Chaos Egg to treat him after he was seriously injured. Unfortunately, the same injury could only make the Chaos Egg grow once. It was useless to suffer the same injury again. Therefore, Zhou could only change his methods to seek abuse. Finally, 4 days later, the Chaos Egg began to evolve while treating Zhou. At that moment, the blood-colored avatar was still inside the Chaos Egg. When the Chaos Egg evolved, it still maintained this state. Zhou could clearly sense that the essence energy in the Chaos Egg was rapidly transforming. It became purer and more concentrated, and the healing effects were clearly strengthened. Before long, the essence energy in the Chaos Egg condensed into mist. The mist then turned into water droplets. More and more water droplets formed a liquid that filled the entire Chaos Egg. At that moment, the Chaos Egg's evolution was finally completed. Inside the Chaos Egg, Zhou could clearly sense that the liquid inside was a high-level essence energy. It was much stronger than ordinary essence energy in all aspects. However, after looking at the Chaos Egg's information, he realized that the Chaos Egg had indeed evolved to an evolved body. However, its name hadn't changed. It was still a Chaos Egg, somewhat different from the other life souls. Zhou was injured again and entered the Chaos Egg to recuperate. The healing speed was indeed much faster. Could it be that the Chaos Egg's ability is only healing? Zhou wasn't too disappointed. After all, such a sick healing ability was almost comparable to Li Xian's self-healing. However, Li Xian could heal himself as he fought. Once the Chaos Egg came out, Zhou couldn't do anything. All he could do was hide inside to recuperate. Zhou didn't care too much. After all, he had to raise the Chaos Egg to a perfect body. Zhou crazily sought abuse in-game and suffered almost all the injuries he could. Although he still failed to advance to a perfect body, it gave Zhou a deeper understanding of the various dimensional creatures' abilities. After all, personally experiencing their various skills was different from seeing them with his eyes. Now, Zhou knew the effects of all sorts of skills like the back of his hand. He knew very well what kind of skills were at their strongest and what kind of reaction they would have when they hit him. Even so, the Chaos Egg still failed to advance to a perfect body. Zhou felt that it was becoming stronger, but it was just too slow. There's no place for me to be injured anymore. What should I do? Should I find a new dimensional zone? Zhou thought for a moment. It wasn't that easy to find a new dimensional zone. Finally, Zhou gritted his teeth. From the looks of it, I can only go there. Zhou reluctantly clicked open the Netherworld City dungeon. After entering, he waited for the torture chamber to open before entering the first torture chamber. Not long after, Zhou came out of the torture chamber and used the Chaos Egg to treat his injuries. Then, he went to the next torture chamber. Another tragic cry sounded. Soon, Zhou came out again and continued treating his injuries. Zhou shuttled through the streets of Netherworld City and suffered all sorts of punishments. Whipping and burning weren't a problem. What was even more perverted was being fried in a pot of oil, having his body pierced by nails, and so on. The inhuman pain was unbearable for ordinary people. However, Zhou endured all. Furthermore, the effects were very good. After every treatment, Zhou could clearly sense that the Chaos Egg was rapidly growing. Zhou was in pain and joy. The physical pain couldn't hide the joy in his heart. However, even Zhou couldn't accept a few punishments. He skipped the torture chambers, such as the wooden horse punishment that Zhou had previously suggested Lu Yan try. There were also some punishments that were even more terrifying than the wooden horse punishment. Zhou consciously didn't enter them. Zhou waited for the torture chamber to open every day before experiencing new punishments. Ignoring a day, it was impossible for him to experience all these punishments for half a month. City Lord Netherworld said that I have to try all the punishments before I can see the real Netherworld city. I wonder what he means. Zhou was somewhat curious, but he couldn't accept the punishments. In the end, he gave up. Days passed, as Zhou tried most of the punishments in Netherworld City. He vaguely felt that the Chaos Egg was about to advance, but it was just a little short. No, I have to find another place to be beaten. After some thought, Zhou felt that it was too dangerous to go to unfamiliar dimensional zones after being injured. He might as well find someone to beat him up. I wonder how Feng Qiuyan's saber techniques have been. I'll spar with him. Zhou contacted Feng Qiuyan by phone. Chapter 814. Zhou said that he wanted to spar with Feng Qiuyan. He couldn't possibly say that he wanted to be beaten and injured, so he could beat him up. When he arrived at the training grounds, Feng Qiuyan was already waiting for him. To Zhou's surprise, Gully and Sadie were also there. Only after chatting did he realize that Feng Qiuyan had been practicing with Gully and Sadie recently. This fellow, Feng Qiuyan, is really a martial arts fanatic. In the past, it was Ming Xiu, then it was Li Xian. Now, he's not even letting Gully and Sadie off, Zhou thought. My saber techniques have improved recently. Coach, please give me some pointers, Feng Qiuyan said as he picked up a practice saber. Why aren't you using the Life Soul saber? Zhou asked in puzzlement. In the past, Feng Qiuyan had used the Life Soul saber in battle, be it practice or actual combat. For some reason, he had suddenly taken a practice saber today. If it were any other time, it wouldn't have been a problem for Feng Qiuyan to use a practice saber. However, Zhou was here to get injured today. How could Feng Qiuyan injure him with a practice saber? Recently, I've been practicing with Sadie. In order to crack her ability, I can only make some attempts with my saber techniques. Now, I can only release it, but I can't retract it, so Feng Qiuyan explained. I see. However, it's best you switch to the Life Soul saber. I want to find the feeling of actual combat. It's best if I can get injured, Zhou said. Feng Qiuyan looked at Zhou in puzzlement. Coach, why do you want to get injured? Zhou had no choice but to explain. A person who hasn't made a mistake doesn't know what's right. If he hasn't been injured, he naturally doesn't know how to deal with injuries. Therefore, I want to get injured and experience the feeling of being injured. Feng Qiuyan was enlightened when he heard that. Coach, you're right. I understand. With that said, Feng Qiuyan put the practice saber back and summoned his Life Soul saber. However, Gully and Sadie had different thoughts when they heard Zhou's words. It was very normal for one to be injured when entering dimensional zones to hunt dimensional creatures. Otherwise, the school wouldn't have been equipped with a specialized hospital. Even Sadie, who had the Eye of Odin, would sometimes be injured. After all, anything could be discovered in dimensional zones. It was impossible for a single person's strength to control everything. However, Zhou said that as though he had never been injured. He actually wanted to find the feeling of being injured. This made Gully and Sadie feel that he was exaggerating. Although Zhou is indeed very strong, Feng Qiuyan's saber techniques are already so fast that even my Eye of Odin can see them, but can't dodge them. If Zhou isn't careful, he might really be injured, Sadie said. Gully had been practicing with Feng Qiuyan for the past few days, so he had a deep understanding of how terrifying Feng Qiuyan was. He felt that Zhou would definitely suffer if he underestimated Feng Qiuyan. Zhou didn't take the practice saber. Firstly, the practice saber couldn't block the Life Soul saber. Secondly, Zhou was there to get injured, so he had no intention of blocking it. Coach, be careful. With that said, Feng Qiuyan drew his saber and slashed. Before he saw the saber beam, Zhou felt a chill in his chest. He immediately moved his feet and saw Feng Qiuyan's saber brush past his shoulder. Such a fast saber. Feng Qiuyan's saber speed was actually comparable to his mythical, transcendent flying immortal. It surprised Zhou. Before Feng Qiuyan's strike landed, the saber's momentum continued slashing down like a gushing river. This was a saber technique that Sadie couldn't dodge even if she saw it. When used transcendent, flying immortal, he needed to focus all his attention to deal with it. Any mistake might result in him being struck. In the beginning, Zhou only wanted to spar with him before he was injured and returned to recuperate. However, Feng Qiuyan's saber techniques truly surprised him. He couldn't help but want to take another look. The more he looked, the more interesting he found it. For a moment, he forgot about being injured and wanted to see Feng Qiuyan's saber techniques. Sadie was alarmed when she saw that Zhou only dodged Feng Qiuyan's attack without retaliating. Under normal circumstances, people with the same physique would definitely not be as fast as a saber. However, Zhou was able to dodge Feng Qiuyan's saber. Just this alone meant that Zhou was faster than Feng Qiuyan. Feng Qiuyan's explosive saber technique ultimately failed to injure Zhou. However, the fighting spirit in his heart surged as he unleashed all his strength, making his saber faster and faster. His life providence was Swift Saber Heavenly King, allowing his saber to become faster and faster. However, in the past, he had to control his saber to prevent it from escaping his control. Now he was doing the opposite, making his saber faster and faster. Without deliberately controlling it, the upper limit of the saber speed was much higher. However, in such a state, even Feng Qiuyan couldn't control his saber. He was completely following his feelings. If he wasn't in a perilous situation, Feng Qiuyan wouldn't have used such a saber technique. This was a saber technique used to risk his life in a perilous situation. Even so, Feng Qiuyan's saber failed to touch Zhou from beginning to end. In the end, the saber speed was so fast that Feng Qiuyan couldn't control it. It flew out of his hand. Just as Zhou was in the midst of his excitement, he suddenly saw his saber fly out without him being injured. He immediately felt depressed. He came here for the sake of getting injured. Wasn't this a waste of time? Zhou steeled his heart and flew towards the saber. He used his body to catch Feng Qiuyan's saber as the life-soul saber stabbed into his ribs. Zhou's actions left Sadie, Gully, and Feng Qiuyan dumbfounded. Even Feng Qiuyan couldn't control the saber from leaving his hand. He couldn't injure Zhou at all, but he had slammed into him. "Coach, are you all right?" Feng Qiuyan went forward to check on Zhou's injuries as he retracted the life-soul saber. "I'm fine. Do you have any other moves? I want to try and see what other kinds of injuries feel like," Zhou said to Feng Qiuyan. "I only know how to use a saber." Feng Qiuyan felt relieved when he saw that Zhou's wound wasn't bleeding. "Why don't the two of you give it a try?" Zhou targeted Sadie and Gully. They came from the ultimate family clan in the North District, so the techniques they knew were different from the people in the East District. The injuries they inflicted should have some effect. "Coach, you must be joking. How can we be your match?" Sadie said with a shake of her head. She refused to fight Zhou no matter what. Helpless, Zhou could only return to use the Chaos Egg to recuperate. Is that fellow really human? He actually slammed into the saber. Gully said with a strange expression. Sadie sighed and said, just as he said, he wants to know what it's like to be injured, but he's just too strong. No one can injure him. Even in the Dugu family, which is best at movement techniques, there probably aren't many people who can reach that level, right? Gully exclaimed. So Gu. Chapter 8:15. Zhou returned to his dorm and used the Chaos Egg to treat his injuries, but he realized that the effects weren't good. From the looks of it, the strength of humans is still too weak. The injuries caused are very limited in improving chaos. I still have to go to those dimensional zones to find mythical dimensional creatures. Zhou gave up on the idea of finding humans to fight. At present, there were only a handful of humans at the mythical stage. Most of them relied on guardians to advance to the mythical stage. However, it wasn't easy to find a new dimensional zone. Zhou thought for a moment and suddenly thought of something. I wonder if the injuries suffered under the taboo power count. Those are the rules of dimensional zones. They're different from dimensional creatures' injuries, but they're still injuries, right? With this in mind, Zhou entered the game and went to small Buddha temple to give it a try. This time, Zhou didn't use the Buddhist essence energy art when he went to small Buddha temple, nor did he use an essence energy skill that prevented him from being injured. He directly stepped onto the stone steps. Not long after he walked up the stone steps, Zhou felt something amiss with his body. He was about to spit out blood and collapse. He hurriedly summoned the Chaos Egg and enveloped the blood-colored avatar. The Chaos Egg was really useful. When Zhou was inside, the taboo power outside couldn't injure him. The Chaos Egg began to repair Zhou's body. Zhou could clearly sense that the Chaos Egg was rapidly becoming stronger as it healed him. It really works. Zhou was overjoyed. After healing his injuries, he continued walking. However, when he was injured again, although the Chaos Egg could still heal him, it didn't become stronger again. A taboo power can only be upgraded once. Let me do the math. Which dimensional zones have taboo powers? Zhou did some calculations and went to the dimensional zones to experience the taboo powers. The Chaos Egg improved very quickly. The effects of the taboo power were abnormally good. It was even better than being injured by a mythical creature. When Zhou walked around Netherworld City without any regard for the rules, the taboo power activated and nearly killed him. Before he was killed, he entered the Chaos Egg and successfully repaired his body. During the repair process, the Chaos Egg began to evolve again. The liquid inside that resembled spring water underwent a tremendous change. The liquid seeped into Zhou's body, making him feel as though his body had melted into the liquid and become a part of it. This feeling was very subtle. Furthermore, the liquid was gradually solidifying. The liquid was solidifying, but as a part of the liquid, Zhou could still move freely. This feeling was indescribable because it was impossible for a person to move through ice or jade. Now, Zhou was having such a feeling, so he couldn't describe it. In short, it was a very magical experience. In the beginning, the Chaos Egg only had a shell. When it evolved, its interior was filled with liquid. Now, the entire Chaos Egg was one entity, turning into jade. There were no gaps inside. The Chaos Egg successfully advanced to a perfect body. At the same time, a notification appeared in-game. Chaos Egg Life Soul advanced to perfect body. Essence Energy +1. When Zhou saw the word +1, he immediately felt like he had drunk honey. He hurriedly looked at the blood-colored avatar stats and saw that his primordial energy had indeed become 41 points. Although it was just a tiny difference, it was something Zhou had been looking forward to for a long time. This didn't just mean that his stats had increased, but also meant that Zhou could absorb mythical essence energy skill crystals that required 41 points of primordial energy. The mythical essence energy skill crystals he had obtained in the past could only be wasted due to his insufficient stats. That feeling wasn't good. Chaos Egg. Perfect body Zhou looked at the Chaos Egg stats and realized that there weren't any changes. It had only advanced to a perfect body and its self-healing effects were stronger. There didn't seem to be anything special about it. Could it be that the Chaos Egg really only has healing abilities? Zhou found it unbelievable. This was a life soul condensed from the first order of chaos. Its functions shouldn't be so monotonous, but Zhou had tried many times. Apart from self-healing, he really didn't discover anything special. Forget it. I'll think of a way to raise the other life souls to a perfect body as soon as possible. 2 essence energy arts with similar stats can allow this stat to break through to 41 points. Are there any essence energy arts I've already learned that have similar stats? Zhou began calculating his essence energy arts. The Tao Sutra and the First Order of Chaos could be excluded. These two had already enhanced his essence energy stats. The Small Perfection of Wisdom Sutra was an essence energy art with a constitution attribute. The Ancient Sovereign Sutra was strength, and the God Fiend Arrow was speed. Apart from these three, Zhou also cultivated the sky-stealing, sun-shifting art. However, he had only just gained basic mastery of the sky-stealing, sun-shifting art. He hadn't even condensed a life providence. However, Zhou could roughly sense that the sky-stealing, sun-shifting art was somewhat similar to the God-Fiend era. It seemed to have some spatial attributes, so it should be more inclined towards the speed attribute. Next, I'll cultivate the sky-stealing, sun-shifting art in the God-Fiend era. Zhou made up his mind to raise the God-Fiend era life soul before cultivating the sky-stealing, sun-shifting art. The life soul condensed from the God-Fiend era was Lost Country. Zhou had actually been studying it for a long time. He had read many works regarding space and fought spatial dimensional creatures. He had vaguely figured out the way to advance. However, there had been too many things happening during this period of time, so he hadn't had the time to advance. The advancement method of Lost Country was difficult, but it wasn't difficult either. Zhou had always been using Lost Country's teleportation function. Every time he used teleportation, Lost Country would actually grow a little. However, teleportation could only be used once every 24 hours, so its growth was very slow. According to Zhou Wen's estimations, he would need to use teleportation at least 1,000 times to evolve Lost Country. At this speed, it was impossible for him to advance to an evolved body in a few years. Then, to advance from an evolved body to a perfect body, he would definitely need more teleportations. Zhou didn't have the time to wait that long. It wasn't that there was no solution. After studying it for so long, Zhou thought of a solution. He found a mythical creature that could teleport. The companion egg that dropped was a mount-type companion egg. Furthermore, it could teleport with its owner. As long as he could teleport, Lost Country should be able to advance. Zhou felt that if he could obtain such a companion beast, he could greatly reduce the time it took for Lost Country to advance to a perfect body. However, the companion beast named Mystic Bird was the Hero King's companion beast. It was said that when the Hero King knew that he didn't have long to live, he had forcefully transferred the Mystic Bird to his descendant. That Mystic Bird could be said to be the Zhang family's most precious companion beast. Zhou didn't have much of a relationship with the Zhang family. He only knew Zhang Yuji, and their relationship wasn't that good. Zhou found it unrealistic to borrow the Mystic Bird from the Zhang family. It's probably unrealistic to fight the Mystic Bird companion beast myself. I'll ask Zhang Yuji first, and see if she knows where the Mystic Bird dropped from. If there's a chance, I'll give it a try. If there's no chance, I can only take an unconventional approach. Zhou tried sending Zhang Yuji a message, but he wasn't sure if she could see it. He heard that Zhang Yuji usually didn't use her phone. But even if the Mystic Bird appears, how will you kill it? Its teleportation ability is too strong. No matter how fast your sword is, you probably won't be able to touch it. There's no need to try your luck. There's definitely nothing. I'll think of another way. Zhou changed the topic. Do you have any plans to come out for a walk? You can come to Luoyang to play. I can't get out. After Zhang Yuji replied with these 3 words, there was no more movement. Zhou sent her a few more messages, but she didn't reply. The Zhang family's Mystic Bird was actually obtained from Guide Ancient City. Could it be that Guide Ancient City is really extraordinary? Zhou thought of the stone saber on Fire God platform. The Mystic Bird had also been discovered on Fire God platform. The stone saber was also on Fire God platform. If he pulled out the stone saber and completely removed the seal on Ancient Sovereign City, he wondered if a dimensional creature like the Mystic Bird would appear. Zhou was truly tempted and wanted to return to pull out the saber. However, on second thought, Guide City didn't have many experts to begin with. If something really happened after he pulled out the stone saber, tens of thousands of people would die. From the looks of it, it's impossible to obtain the Mystic Bird companion beast. I can only try the second plan. Zhou still had another method, but it was even more unreliable. Zhou didn't know if it would work. Teleportation was actually a form of spatial teleportation. In theory, the Bright Torch Vision World was also a form of spatial teleportation. It teleported what Torch Dragon saw into the Vision World. However, teleporting into the Vision World meant death, so no one was willing to be teleported in. Zhou solution was to use the blood-colored avatar's death as an explanation. Then, he would get Torch Dragon to use the bright torch vision world again and again to give the blood-colored avatar an experience similar to teleportation. After entering the game, Zhou couldn't be bothered to run to the Torch Dragon Temple. He summoned Torch Dragon Youngling and got it to use the bright torch vision world to look at the blood-colored avatar. After taking a look, the game screen immediately went black. Zhou dripped his blood to revive and once again got Torch Dragon Youngling to kill the blood-colored avatar wearing the Lost Country ring. He repeated this over and over again, and Zhou didn't know how many drops of blood he had dripped. He could sense that the Lost Country ring was growing, but its growth speed was much slower than using teleportation. At this speed, it was probably impossible for it to evolve after 1,000 or 2,000 times. It might even require tens of thousands of deaths. Thankfully, the Chaos Egg had healing abilities. Otherwise, Zhou would really be worried that he didn't have enough blood. Zhou had been courting death in his dorm the entire time. He was already numb to death, but the effects weren't good. Teleporting once to Lost Country was equivalent to being killed dozens of times by the bright torch vision world. How good would it be if I had a mystic bird? Why isn't there a mystic bird in ancient sovereign city? Zhou was rather depressed. Now, Zhou had a deep understanding of how difficult it was for humans to advance to the mythical stage. It was impossible for an ordinary person to cultivate 8 essence energy arts at the same time, so it was impossible for them to raise their 4 basic stats to 41. This also meant that they had no chance of advancing to the mythical stage. Even if one could cultivate 8 essence energy arts at the same time, the cultivation methods of those essence energy arts were different. Without the help of the mysterious phone, it would be equally difficult to master them. For example, the Chaos Egg required constant injuries. An ordinary person would die if they weren't careful, so there was no point in cultivating it. The advancement of Slaughterer was even more insane. Was killing a guardian something an ordinary person could do? Even with a mythical pet, killing a guardian was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Unless I'm like Xia Jiahuang, forcefully plundering the talent bloodline of others for my own use, it's just too difficult for humans to advance to the mythical stage. Zhou felt a headache when he thought about how he still had several essence energy arts to cultivate. Furthermore, Zhou's essence energy arts weren't complete. The essence energy arts for speed and essence energy were considered complete. There was also the demon god catalog of unknown attributes. As it was difficult to determine its attributes, Zhou didn't plan on cultivating it for the time being. If the demon god catalog added strength and constitution, he was still lacking 1 essence energy art. If it wasn't, he was still lacking 2 essence energy arts. Perhaps he would get used to dying. Anyway, Zhou was a little numb. All he wanted now was to quickly advance Lost Country. Chapter 817. In front of Chess Mountain's mountain wall, there was a strange flower with its flower bud drooping as though it was looking at the girl below the mountain wall. And Jing, you should already have an answer, right? A voice sounded from the flower. It was the Thearch's voice. Yes, I already have an answer. I promise you. And Jing said very calmly, a wise decision. With my help, not only can you obtain a powerful mythical companion beast, but you can also obtain the favor of a guardian. Soon, you will be stronger than the person you want to defeat, the Thearch said. I don't think I'll be stronger than him just because I have these, and Jing said. The Thearch asked with interest, in that case, why did you agree? I just want to become stronger, and Jing said. All right, as you wish. You will become stronger than all humans. With the Thearch's voice, a passageway opened up in Chess Mountain's mountain wall, and Jing walked in. Zhou didn't know that Jing had also encountered the Thearch. At that moment, he was still desperately being killed by the bright torch vision world. The blood-colored avatar had died countless times. Anyway, it kept dying. It had been dead for many days. Finally, after Zhou used Lost Country's teleportation ability, the Lost Country ring suddenly produced a strong spatial fluctuation. The Lost Country ring's surface was a ghost face. Half of it looked extremely ugly, while the other half looked extremely beautiful. It was like an angel and a devil coexisted. At that moment, the ghost face's eyes emitted strange spatial fluctuations as its eyes shimmered with a strange light. Ka, 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 ka. A sound suddenly came from the ghost face's eyes. It sounded like the sound of a mechanical needle spinning. Zhou took a careful look and saw that a wheel had appeared in each of the ghost face's eyes. There were scales on the wheel, but the scales division was very strange. It wasn't the division of time that Zhou was familiar with, nor was it a unit of length. He didn't know what this division meant. The two wheels in the ghost face mask's eyes kept spinning, and the ka-ka sound came from the spinning wheels. When the two roulette wheels made a full turn, they stopped and a notification appeared in the game. Lost Country Life Soul has advanced to Civilized Country. Currently an evolved body. Civilized Country, evolved body, a lost country, but the origin of civilization. During his advancement, Zhou also sensed some information about Civilized Country and had a simple understanding of it. To truly understand it, he still needed to figure it out himself. Compared to the Lost Country that could only teleport once every 24 hours, the current Civilized Country was clearly much better. The scale in Grimace's eyes represented coordinates. After adjusting the coordinates, long-distance teleportation could be carried out. Long-distance teleportation could be carried out every 24 hours. There was also the short-distance teleportation from before. He could use it 10 times in 24 hours. I'm one step closer to infinite teleportation. Zhou was rather satisfied with Civilized Country's ability, but he didn't know how to determine the coordinates. The dials in Ghostface Mask's eyes were different, and the division was very strange. Could it be longitude and latitude? Zhou still hadn't figured out how to set the coordinates for this item. If he set it wrongly, it wouldn't be good if he was teleported to a pot of oil or a female bathroom. Forget it. I'll study it in the future. It won't be too late to study it after I raise Civilized Country to a perfect body. Zhou continued getting Torch Dragon to kill the blood-colored avatar with Bright Torch Vision World. However, Zhou realized that the blood-colored avatar's death gave him almost an imperceptible amount of energy. I can only obtain so little energy from dying once. When can Civilized Country advance to the perfect stage? Even if I drain all my blood, I'm afraid it won't be enough. Zhou knew that this path couldn't be taken. He had to think of other solutions. Young Master One, have you seen the news? Just as he was thinking, and Sheng called. What news? Zhou asked in puzzlement. Recently, he had been grinding dungeons. At most, he would take the time to buy some food and daily necessities for Ye. How could he have the time to watch the news? Take a look at today's headlines in Luoyang, and Sheng said. Zhou didn't know what had happened. He went online and immediately saw a striking picture. It was a six-winged angel. To be precise, it was a woman wearing angel armor. She was killing a dimensional creature that had broken the seal. Isn't this the six-winged seraph that John contracted in the past? He found a new contractor? Zhou was delighted as he asked in Sheng, is the place in this picture Luoyang? Zhou thought that if the six-winged seraph was still in Luoyang, there was hope for his slaughter advancement. If he wanted to kill a guardian, he had to do it as soon as possible. According to the silver-haired companion beast, guardians could continue growing. After contracting a human, they could even reach the calamity grade with the help of a human's body. It would only become harder and harder to kill them in the future. Yes, it's in a dimensional zone near Luoyang. I originally thought that the guardian had left, but I never expected him to still be nearby. Furthermore, there's a new contractor, and Sheng said. Can we still find him now? Zhou asked. I've already sent someone to investigate. I'll inform you if there's any news. And Sheng added, Madam wants you to bring her home for a meal when you have time. All right. Zhou had been in his dorm for a long time. Now that Civilized Country had reached a bottleneck, he planned on going out for a breather. He gamed every day while sat alone in his dorm. He didn't know if she would have any psychological problems after such a long time. After getting in Sheng to arrange a time, Zhou took to see Ouyang Lan. It was rare for Zhou Lingfeng to be around today. As Zhouwen rarely came to the Yin family, he rarely saw him. However, Zhouwen was already used to it. Before Zhou Lingfeng married Ouyang Lan, he was often not at home, so he didn't find anything wrong. During the meal, Ouyang Lan mentioned Zhou Lingfeng's matter. Only then did Zhouwen know that he was translating a book. He had been working on it for a long time and was about to finish it. What kind of book is it? Zhouwen asked curiously. With Ouyang Lan around, Zhou Lingwen probably didn't need to do ordinary translation work. The books he was translating probably weren't just for money. Zhou Lingfeng said, "It's a book from a small country in the South District before the dimensional storms. As the language itself isn't very mature and is mixed with many symbols, the translation didn't progress smoothly." Zhouwen listened for a while, but didn't get a clue. He wasn't interested in text work to begin with. So Gu. Chapter 8:18. On the way back, Zhouwen walked the streets of Luoyang with Yer. He could clearly sense that Luoyang was much more desolate than when he first arrived. Life was difficult to begin with, and there were often breakout creatures appearing. In such a chaotic world, it was already very difficult to have a stable home. It was even more difficult to raise children. Many people chose not to have children. Even though the Federation had always been encouraging childbearing, the birth rate of newborns kept dropping. Curiously sized up everything around her. Everything here was novel to her. Although she wasn't a real child, her inner world wasn't much more mature than a child's. After all, she had been trapped near the Kumine in the past. Apart from when she was needed to fight, Xiao Tianfeng wouldn't take her out. Zhouwen thought that since he was out today, he should relax. He took Ye around and bought some things for her. He also let her try some normal entertainment. Although Ye didn't say anything, he could tell that she was still somewhat happy. Will I have time in the future? Should I take her out more often? Zhouwen thought to himself. Zhouwen felt that he was taking care of Ye, but he didn't realize that without Ye, he might become more and more accustomed to being alone. While Ye was experiencing the VR game, Zhouwen's phone rang. It was Zhang Yuji. You previously asked about the mystic bird. Do you only want one mystic bird, or do you want any companion beast that can help you escape? Zhang Yuji asked. Actually, I want a mount that can teleport. Do you have any connections? Zhouwen asked suspiciously. Zhang Yuji said, not really. If you just want to escape, our Zhang family will be selling a companion beast that can escape through the earth. Perhaps you can try and see if you can get it. Earth escape companion beast? Is it a mount? Zhouwen hurriedly asked. If it was a mount, it would be very attractive to Zhouwen if it could escape through the earth with its owner. Apart from teleportation, earth escape was almost the best escape skill. Zhouwen naturally wanted a mount that could escape through the earth. If it wasn't a mount and couldn't bring people with it, its value would be much lower. Take the Tai Sui, for example. Although it also knew how to escape through the earth, it was not very useful if it could not bring people along with it. It's a mount, and it's at the mythical stage. However, there are many people competing this time. It will probably fetch a high price, Zhang Yuji said. Why did your Zhang family sell such a companion beast? Zhouwen was somewhat puzzled. No one would mind having too many such companion beasts. Zhouwen found it unbelievable that the Zhang family wanted to sell it. If Zhouwen had such a companion beast, he definitely wouldn't sell it. The reason is very complicated. I can't explain it in a short period of time, but companion beasts are definitely real. If you're interested, you can come over and take a look. When the time comes, I could be a good host, Zhang Yuji said. All right, what companion beast is it? Zhouwen asked. It's the earth elemental beast of the 5 elemental beasts. Zhang Yuji thought for a moment and said, there are a total of 5 elemental beasts. They are metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Each has different abilities. They were obtained from a dimensional zone. One has to have a corresponding special physique to obtain companion eggs of different attributes. There's no problem with the earth elemental beast's origins, but there are many people who want it, so the price might be very high. Zhouwen immediately understood that the earth elemental beast was likely the same as Banana Fairy. It was a companion egg obtained from a special dimensional zone, not something that dropped from killing a dimensional creature. After chatting with Zhang Yuji for a while, he learned that the auction would be held next month, so there was no rush. It's going to take a look when the time comes. With my current strength, I don't think I need to worry about the bureau. I'll use that batch of essence crystals. Zhou thought for a moment and felt that he couldn't directly use essence crystals at the auction. Therefore, he asked Sheng if there were any channels to sell the essence crystals. The Sunset Army's arsenal needs a large number of essence crystals. Sell them to the arsenal directly. The price naturally won't let you suffer a loss, and Sheng said. All right, Zhou agreed. After discussing the details of the transaction with Sheng, and Sheng suddenly said, Are you interested in coming to the arsenal to take a look? That's not a good idea, right? Zhou was slightly taken aback. There's nothing bad about it. To others, the arsenal is a secret, but you're naturally different, young Master Wen. Furthermore, there's something I want you to take a look at, and Sheng said. Zhou originally didn't want to go, but since Sheng had said so, he had no choice but to agree. After agreeing on a time, Zhou took to the arsenal. The arsenal was in a dimensional zone. It used the dimensional zone's rules to effectively ensure that it was difficult for outsiders to enter. Furthermore, the arsenal had strict security measures. It was different from what Zhou had imagined. The arsenal was very modern, and all sorts of equipment were very advanced. It looked like a futuristic high-tech laboratory in a movie. In this era, it was already very rare to see such a laboratory. Overseer searched for a long time before he found this dimensional zone. The taboo rules here are very special. They won't affect the operation of the equipment, and Sheng introduced to Zhou one as they walked. Zhou saw many pieces of equipment that the Sunset Army was equipped with, such as essence gold bullets, essence gold shields, essence gold armor, etc. There were also some that Zhou had never seen before. They were likely still in development. The entire arsenal was built in an underground space and was divided into several levels. Zhou even saw an engine and transmission made of essence gold. It was truly surprising. Overseer has put in a lot of effort into the arsenal. He invests a lot of money every year. The expenditure on materials is a huge sum. Thankfully, scientists aren't valued by society these days. Otherwise, it wouldn't be easy to hire so many high-end professionals, and Sheng said. What level are the essence gold weapons at now? Can they fight mythical creatures? Zhou asked. Pure essence gold weapons aren't enough. However, just like the bamboo blade you use, some high-level essence gold weapons can fight mythical creatures if the user is strong enough. However, this isn't absolute. What we are researching now might be able to break this situation. As Sheng spoke, his eyes seemed to glow. It was obvious that he was very proud of that item. What's that? Zhou asked curiously. Take a look for yourself. And Sheng didn't directly answer Zhou. Instead, he took him to the lowest level of the arsenal. When the door to the independent laboratory opened, Zhou was immediately shocked by what he saw. Chapter 819. In a laboratory that was as huge as a warehouse, there was a strange device placed horizontally. It looked a little like a rocket launcher that could be carried on a person's shoulder. However, this thing was just too big. It was placed horizontally, and its length was almost at the limit of what the laboratory could accommodate. Furthermore, it looked even more high-tech. There were rings of crystals on it. In short, it was a huge rod made of metal and crystals. Is this all made of primordial gold? The crystals on it should be primordial crystals, right? Zhou asked in shock. If this thing was really made of primordial gold and primordial crystals, the amount of materials needed was unimaginable. Zhou's primordial crystals were already considered a lot, but when used on this huge machine, it only took up a small portion. 59% primordial gold, 28% primordial crystals, and the rest are supplementary materials, and Sheng said, What is this thing? Don't tell me it's a large rocket launcher? Zhou asked. You can also treat it as a super large rocket launcher. Its effects are similar, but it's different. This is a primordial energy compression accelerator, and Sheng explained. Its main purpose is to compress primordial energy and accelerate it before firing it out. What level of power can it reach? Zhou asked curiously, and Sheng thought for a moment and said, "This is a very complicated problem. The strength depends on the amount of primordial energy and the speed after enhancement. With the current skill, it can compress primordial energy equivalent to 5 tons of primordial crystals at one go. Then, it can accelerate to supersonic speed." "I don't understand all this. Is there a simpler analogy?" Zhou asked. "This is because I haven't used that many primordial crystals during the experiment, so the strength I'm talking about now is only in theory. According to the calculations, the strength of a full-powered primordial energy launch should be stronger than Tyrant Behemoth's full-powered strike. Of course, this is only in theory. In fact, a single launch requires a large number of primordial crystals. Furthermore, it takes a long time to refine the primordial crystals and then compress them with the launcher. Even if all the materials are prepared in advance, the launch will take more than 10 hours to reach its maximum power." "It sounds very troublesome," Zhou said. "It's indeed very troublesome. That's because the foundation at the beginning was too weak. Many of the technologies had to be explored bit by bit. Right now, it's not the best solution. However, from the looks of it, the path is correct. By compressing essence energy and accelerating it, the energy explosion produced is indeed very powerful. Furthermore, it deals great damage to dimensional creatures. It's much stronger than ordinary essence gold bullets." Speaking of this, and Sheng appeared somewhat excited. "The greatest difficulty now is how to compress primordial energy more effectively. If we can compress primordial energy in advance and create a compressed primordial energy bullet that's similar to bullets, then the acceleration equipment can be miniaturized. When the time comes, we can produce a primordial energy compression accelerator that can be used by a single person. However, there are many technical problems that need to be solved slowly. At present, the vitality compression accelerator that can be made is only this big. It's good, but I don't think I can use it at the moment, right?" Zhou couldn't imagine how he could use such a huge item. If it was used to deal with mythical creatures, those mythical creatures would be very fast. Before the accelerator was aimed at them, they would probably have already fled. Unless it was a mythical creature with a questionable intelligence, it wouldn't stand there and let the essence energy compressor hit it. Having more than 10 hours of preparation time in advance was even more fatal. They had to make an appointment before fighting. The restrictions were just too great. In fact, the original goal of such a large essence energy compression accelerator isn't to kill mythical creatures in dimensional zones. It's mainly prepared for dimensional creatures to break out on a large scale in the future, and Shang said. Zhou immediately understood that Tianzhua had originally researched this to defend Luoyang in the future. It was still very useful to deal with a large number of dimensional creatures attacking the city. However, the current direction of development is still to be lightweight. I hope that a single launcher can be researched in the next few years, but it's very difficult. It's not just a problem of funds and materials. Many technical problems are waiting for experts to overcome. Sometimes, a small problem might not be resolved even after a few years. Zhou could tell that Sheng had high hopes for this launcher. Indeed, humans had no way of advancing to the mythical stage, so they could only rely on external forces. Companion beasts were external forces, and so were guardians. As for Tianzhua and Sheng, they clearly wanted to try taking another path. We are still researching essence energy armor. It's still in the midst of research, and we haven't achieved any substantial results. In the future, if the essence energy armor and essence energy launcher can be successfully researched, even a mortal stage human can fight high-level dimensional creatures or even kill mythical creatures by controlling these two pieces of equipment. I hope that day will come sooner. Zhou felt that it would be great if they could really succeed. This might be the cornerstone of human society's stability. Just like in primitive society, humans slowly learned to use tools, created cold weapons, and became the masters of the land. Then they created firearms, cars, ships, rockets, and so on, becoming the rulers of the entire Earth. Perhaps these essence energy armors and essence energy launchers were the weapons that humans would use to rule Earth again in the future. The premise was that the research was successful. The launchers of this size were too weak in actual combat. Overseer has always been looking forward to that day. He said that even if humans can't advance to the mythical stage and their physical strength can't match those powerful creatures, they will definitely be able to become the rulers of the world again. And Shang said. Looking at the busy staff in the laboratory, Zhou suddenly felt that the future of humanity might not be hopeless. Many people were secretly working hard to prepare for the large-scale destruction of dimensional zones. The destruction of dimensional zones might not necessarily destroy humanity. The only thing they lacked now was time. Be it humans who were working hard in cultivation or those who wanted to advance to the mythical stage. People like them who were researching new weapons needed too much time. Zhou left all the essence crystals within Shang. He originally planned on selling a portion of them, but in the end, he was persuaded by Shang to sell all the essence crystals to him. Furthermore, a portion of them were bartered. When he left, Zhou realized that Shang had brought him to see the essence energy compression accelerator for the essence crystals. Chapter 820. There's something else I want to show you. After leaving the laboratory, Shang took Zhou to the Sunset Army's camp. Shang brought Zhou to a hall where there were many VR equipment. Give it a try, Shang said with a smile as he handed a VR helmet to Zhou. Zhou put on the helmet in puzzlement and entered the game. Soon, he nearly cried out in surprise. This game was very similar to what Huang Ji had made. However, Huang Ji had made a cell phone game, and this was much more high-end. It was a VR game with a full perspective. The scene looked very similar to the Real Tiger Cage Pass. Even the demonized soldiers and demonized generals could be passed off as real. However, the various settings and modes were very similar to the cell phone version. This game looks a little familiar, Zhou said to Shang after taking off his helmet. You have a part in this game too. It's the game you and Huang Ji worked together to create. Overseer found Huang Ji to cooperate with him. This is the latest result. It's used to train recruits, Shang said. So the rich man senior Huang Ji mentioned is in Tianzhua. Zhou never expected in Tianzhua to invest in a game made by Huang Ji. Zhou remembered that in Tianzhua disliked him playing games. He never expected in Tianzhua to invest in this game. It was too surprising. Overseer isn't actually a bad person. He's just a little more stubborn than others, Shang said. It doesn't matter what kind of person he is. After all, we aren't the same type of people. It's impossible for us to have too many interactions in the future, Zhou said. Shang shook his head and didn't continue the topic. Zhou told Shang about the Earth Elemental Beast being auctioned. The Zhang family is actually auctioning the Earth Elemental Beast? Is this news accurate? Shang was alarmed when he heard that. Zhang Yuji told me. I don't think it's fake, right? Zhou said. If Zhang Yuji said it, it definitely can't be fake. I never expected the Zhang family to auction the Earth Elemental Beast. I reckon the other 5 families and some wealthy families will participate in this auction. Shang's expression kept changing as though he was thinking about something. You know the origins of the Earth Elemental Beast. Zhou seemed to know something from Shang's expression. In fact, the Earth Elemental Beast is only one of the 5 elemental beasts. This companion beast was brought out of the founding emperor tomb by the 6 heroes back then. There are a total of 5: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. The Zhang family obtained the Earth Elemental Beast, but I have no idea where the other 4 went. Wasn't it brought out by the 6 heroes? Shouldn't the other 4 be in the hands of the other families? Zhou asked in puzzlement. In theory, that's the case, but the other families say that they don't have a 5 elemental beast. Only the Zhang family has an Earth Elemental Beast. This matter is said to have made the 6 heroes very unhappy, but outsiders don't know the truth. Now that the Zhang family had suddenly auctioned the earth elemental beast, there had to be an unknown reason. By the way, did Zhang Yuji say why they are auctioning the earth elemental beast? And Sheng pondered. No. Zhou Wen shook his head slightly. If you're interested, you can go take a look. However, it will probably be a little difficult to take down the earth elemental beast. This auction definitely won't be that simple, and Sheng said. Zhou Wen nodded. He was indeed very interested, but he was more interested in the dimensional zone of the founding emperor tomb. If he had the chance, he wanted to see if the founding emperor tomb had a tiny palm symbol. Adjutant and the six-winged seraphim has appeared again. As the two of them spoke, a soldier came over to report. Where is she? And Sheng asked. Near Chess Mountain. The soldier handed the information he had just received to Sheng. Near Chess Mountain? Why is she going there? And Sheng frowned slightly. Zhou Wen didn't find it strange. The six-winged seraphim was originally released by the Arch through tricking John into releasing it. Now, it was very normal for someone who had contracted the six-winged seraphim to go to Chess Mountain. Is there a specific location? I want to take a look, Zhou Wen asked. According to the intelligence, she has been found near the Chiha River recently. If you want to find her, go there and take a look. There should be a chance. And Sheng handed the information to Zhou Wen. All right, I'll go take a look now. Zhou Wen read the intelligence and realized that it was indeed written as such. He decided to head over to take a look. I still have some matters to resolve, so I won't be sending you there. After all, you are familiar with the place. Deputy Governor Qin is still there. Just look for him when you go, and Sheng said. After leaving the military camp, Zhou Wen went to Chess Mountain. Most of the Guardians didn't have masters yet, so they didn't have many choices. They could kill as many as they could, and the six-winged seraphim was a guardian that Zhou Wen was more likely to kill. The only thing he needed to worry about was the Arch. If it wasn't necessary, Zhou Wen didn't want to see her. The Arch was definitely not as simple as an ordinary mythical creature. Zhou Wen suspected that she was very likely at the Calamity grade. However, after arriving on Earth, her strength had been weakened by Earth's rules, reducing her to the level of an ordinary mythical creature. Even so, the Arch was much stronger than ordinary mythical creatures. Yeah, it was also brought over by Zhou Wen. There were many strange creatures in Chess Mountain, such as blood threadworms. Zhou Wen suspected that they were also goo. Bringing it along might be of some use. Dr. Zhou, you're finally here. We were just talking about you. Before Zhou Wen arrived at the Chess Mountain encampment, he first encountered the patrolling soldiers. The patrolling soldiers greeted Zhou Wen in surprise. In the military camp, and Jing was training. She had been at the Chess Mountain encampment for so long, and every time she fought, she would try her best. However, no matter how well she did or how much credit she earned, others would only take it for granted. This was because she was from the Yin family and in Tianzuo's sister. As for Zhou Wen, he had only stayed in the military camp for a short period of time, but he had already obtained the support of the soldiers and officers. When others mentioned Zhou Wen, they wouldn't mention his relationship with the Yin family. They would talk about Dr. Zhou with great reverence. And Jing didn't understand why everyone still treated her as in Tianzuo's sister when she had done as much as Zhou when in Chess Mountain. How am I inferior to him? And Jing practiced very hard because she wanted to defeat that fellow. She couldn't lose. Just as she was practicing, she suddenly heard a commotion coming from the military camp. And Jing thought that something had happened, but when she went out to take a look, she saw many soldiers and officers surrounding a person. It was none other than Zhou Wen, who she dreamed of defeating. And Jing's heart tightened, but she quickly relaxed. She thought to herself, you came just in time. It's time to end this. So goo. Chapter 821. Upon seeing the way the soldiers looked at Zhou Wen, and Jing felt mixed emotions. It was something she wanted but couldn't obtain. Zhou Wen, I'll surprise you this time, and Jing thought. Even Qin Wufu came out to take a look when he heard the voice. When he realized that it was Zhou Wen, he got someone to call him over. Little Zhou, have you thought it through and prepared to join me as a soldier? Qin Wufu poured a cup of water for him. I heard that the six-winged seraphim appeared near the Chiha River, so I came to take a look. Can you send someone to take me over to take a look? Zhou said, That's easy, but that six-winged seraphim's strength is extremely terrifying. I don't know if he's a friend or foe. If you encounter him, you have to be careful. Qin Wufu exhorted before saying to his adjutant, Call little Jing over. Governor, are you looking for Jing? Zhou hurriedly asked. That's right. You are family. She's currently in charge of that generation's supervision. Let her take you there, Qin Wufu said. There's no need to trouble her. Just find a soldier to take me there. Zhou didn't wish to get into trouble with Jing. It's not troublesome. It's also her job, Qin Wufu said with a smile. Seeing that the adjutant had already left, Zhou didn't say anything else. After all, he was just leading the way. It wasn't a big deal. He originally imagined that Jing wouldn't be willing to take him there. But to his surprise, after Jing came and listened to Qin Wufu's orders, she didn't show any special reaction. She was like an ordinary soldier who chose to carry out the orders. Looks like she didn't waste her time in the army. She has indeed matured a lot and isn't as childish as before. Seeing how Jing treated him like an ordinary person, Zhou felt that there wouldn't be any trouble on this trip. The two of them left the encampment, and Jing led Zhou all the way to Chiha River. On the way, Jing didn't speak much. Zhou was happy to relax since he had no desire to communicate with her. However, Zhou soon discovered a problem. According to the intelligence, the place where the six-winged seraphim was found was near the Chiha River, but Jing had already walked into the nearby mountains and was a little far from the Chiha River. Didn't the six-winged seraphim appear near the Chiha River? Why are you in the mountains? Zhou had no choice but to ask. You're looking for a six-winged seraphim, right? Jing asked expressionlessly. Yes. Zhou nodded. That's right. Just follow me. There won't be any mistakes. Jing continued leading the way. But she thought to herself, You never imagined that I'm the current owner of the six-winged seraphim, right? Although you once defeated Hardadef, who possessed a six-winged seraph, Hardadef was unable to unleash the true power of six-winged seraph. On the other hand, I can already unleash more than 90% of six-winged seraph's power. It should be enough to fight you. Seeing how confident Jing was, Zhou had no choice but to continue walking into the mountain with her. After walking for a while in the mountains, the silence finally stopped at a valley. She guessed that even if there was a battle here, the military camp would not be able to hear anything. Have we arrived? Did the six-winged seraphim appear nearby? Zhou looked around but didn't find any traces. Truth Listener remained on, but there were no traces of the six-winged seraphim nearby. Yes, the six-winged seraphim is here, Jing said, pretending to be calm. What do you mean? Zhou had already noticed that something was amiss with Jing's tone. A holy glow rose from Jing's body as white feathers condensed into a six-winged seraphim that floated behind her. It was none other than the six-winged seraphim Zhou had previously seen. So you're the new contractor of the six-winged seraphim. Zhou frowned slightly. He had come to kill the six-winged seraphim, but now the six-winged seraphim was Jing's guardian. It didn't seem good for Ouyang Lan to know that he had killed Jing's guardian. Ever since I entered the military, I've been working hard. I work when others are working, and I train hard when others are resting. I work hard to make myself stronger. Now, I'm on the same starting point as you. I have an epic, perfect life soul, mythical companion beast, and guardian. I already have what you have. Now, we can have a fair battle, Jing said to Zhou. The Arch helped you contract this six-winged seraphim, right? Zhou asked Jing. You know the Arch? Jing was slightly taken aback. Zhou immediately smiled bitterly when he heard Jing say that. I'd rather not know her. Did she have any conditions for helping you contract the six-winged seraphim? This has nothing to do with you, Jing said. Your matter really has nothing to do with me, but you are Sislan's daughter. I don't wish for Sislan to be sad, so I hope you can understand that the Arch is a very dangerous person. Think about John's outcome, and you should know what kind of person she is, Zhou said. Jing looked at Zhou and said, You don't have to worry about my mom. I'm already an adult. I know what to do and what not to do. I didn't agree to do anything for the Arch. She didn't ask me to do anything for her. Her only request is for me to try my best to obtain first place in the next companion beast ranking battle and obtain a divine fruit for her. In that case, you obtained a mythical companion beast in Chess Mountain, right? Zhou never expected the arch to place so much importance on the divine fruit. She failed to obtain it from him and even found in Jing. How do you know? And Jing was even more surprised. Because the Tharch came to me previously, but I rejected her. She's too dangerous. It's best not to have anything to do with her, Zhou said truthfully. If I want to become stronger, I naturally have to take risks. I know what to choose. There's no need for you to teach me. And Jing looked at Zhou and slowly said, regardless of victory or defeat today, the grudge between us will end here. Do you really have to fight me? Zhou asked in Jing. Of course. Otherwise, why would I train so hard for so long? This time, I have to defeat you, and Jing said. Even if you lose your guardian because of this? Zhou asked again. This time, without waiting for Jing's answer, the six-winged seraphim said, only a guardian can defeat a guardian. Last time, John was too weak and couldn't even use a tenth of my strength. Now that Jing is my guardian, I can use my true strength. You have no chance of winning. And Jing and I are perfect. I won't betray her. The six-winged seraphim clearly misunderstood and thought that Zhou meant that he would betray Jing like how he had betrayed John. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.